In a dark alley, a white-haired man spits on the ground, but the spit accidentally lands on another man's shoe, making him curse in anger. A voice from off-screen tells them to move, saying it's time to make some money. The white-haired man Bong Yi-hyuk laughs at the man's reaction as he walks away. Looking around, he thinks the studio district is noisy and filthy every single day. He eventually reaches the rooftop room he calls home, a tiny 180-square-foot apartment. Inside, the 25-year-old unemployed man sighs while preparing dinner, realizing it's ramen again. He works 3 part-time jobs at a convenience store, a barbecue restaurant, and as a day laborer, yet he can never save any money because he's buried in debt. No matter how miserably he lives, paying it off always comes first. As he eats, he reflects on his future. With no special skills and nothing but a healthy body, he sees no hope ahead. While lamenting his ordinary, bottom-feeder life, a bright blue screen suddenly appears before him with a ding. Bong Yi-hyuk has awakened. He freezes in shock as the blue light reflects in his eyes. A noodle hangs from his mouth while sweat runs down his face. Startled by the sudden screen and the hot noodles, he spits everything out and yells that it's hot before wondering why it scared him so badly. Staring at the space where the window appeared, he pants in disbelief. An awakening him. His thoughts immediately turn to what an awakening means. Many people consider it a blessing and a chance to completely change their lives, even better than winning the lottery. But there's one problem. None of it matters if you don't survive. He imagines himself kneeling beneath a spotlight as the reality sinks in. Entering the tower is incredibly dangerous. His mind races through horrifying possibilities, being ripped apart by monsters, freezing to death, burning alive, dying from poison, or getting crushed by deadly traps. He even imagines a chibi version of himself acting as a safety instructor, listing all the different ways someone can die inside the tower. That's why he's always lived cautiously. Whenever he witnesses injustice, he pretends to be on the phone and walks away. He avoids dangerous situations whenever possible and never even walks beneath construction sites. A bottom feeder and a nobody, that's who he is. Bong Yi-hyuk has lived that way for 25 years. He sets down his chopsticks as reality begins to sink in. But is this really an awakening? Maybe he just nodded off from exhaustion. Desperate for confirmation, he jumps to his feet and shouts for his status window. With another ding, the blue screen appears again, displaying his information. His name is Bong Yi-hyuk, his affiliation is Black Tower Level 1, and his trait is Summon. His trait skills include Targeted Summon, Random Summon, and Dismiss. His common skills are Enter Tower and Tower Inventory. He reaches toward the holographic screen with a trembling hand. It's real, this isn't a dream. As he stares at the display, he realizes his trait is Summoning. Awakened individuals receive a unique ability known as a trait. Some gain physical abilities like swordsmanship or martial arts, while others receive powers such as gigantification or healing. His trait allows him to summon beings such as spirits, phantom beasts, golems, demonic beasts, and other creatures under his command. Excitement washes over him as he wonders what kind of summoner he'll become. Since he's finally awakened, he decides to try using a skill with some style. Striking a dramatic pose, he thrusts his hand forward and activates Summon before selecting Random Summon. He waits confidently, but nothing happens. A large question mark practically appears over his head as he stands there in awkward silence. Scratching the back of his head with an embarrassed chibi version of himself mirroring his reaction, he suddenly realizes his mistake. Of course, skills don't work outside the tower. He remembers the basic rule every player knows. Their abilities only function inside the tower. Outside, aside from accessing the system window, awakened players are no different from ordinary civilians. Turning away in embarrassment, he scolds himself. Anyone with an internet connection knows that. He feels like a complete idiot. Just as he convinces himself there was no chance the skill would activate outside the tower, another familiar ding echoes through the room. The blue system window appears once again, initiating Random Summon. His eyes widen as a purple light reflects in his pupil. What? Yi-hyuk thinks, completely caught off guard. A brilliant purple light suddenly fills his tiny apartment as a magical summoning circle forms in front of him. From the blinding glow, a man with tied-back red hair and sleek, combat-ready attire steps forward. Yi-hyuk's jaw drops. Wait, why is this working? And a person. The summoned man greets him with a cheerful salute and a broad smile, confirming that he is indeed human. Yi-hyuk can only stare in disbelief. What the hell? Sweat runs down his face as he struggles to process the impossible. His skill activated successfully outside the tower, and instead of summoning a spirit or golem, it summoned a human. The man, John Cossack, suddenly takes a deep sniff of the air. His eyes immediately lock onto the table. Ramen, may I have just one bite? Yi-hyuk hesitantly agrees. John Cossack happily digs into the leftover ramen while Yi-hyuk watches in silence, wondering how he managed to summon someone whose first priority is asking for a bite of food. Cossack loudly slurps up a huge mouthful of noodles before suddenly recoiling from the heat. He complains that they must have released a new spicy flavor. Yi-hyuk stares blankly. He thinks mild udon is spicy. He's a shameless moocher and a complete spice wimp. Putting the bizarre scene aside, Yi-hyuk focuses on the real issue. How did his skill activate outside the tower? And how did it summon a human? He's never even heard of anything like this. He opens his status window again. A new message explains that his trait summons humans and demi-humans and that summons are divided into grades. R for rare, SR for super rare, SSR for special super rare, and LSSR for legend special super rare. As different colored shields representing each grade appear before him, Yi-hyuk can't help comparing it to pulling characters in a game. Another system message appears. The summoned is bound by the 3 mandates. Yi-hyuk stares at the message in confusion. The status window lists the 3 mandates. First, the summoned must protect the summoner's life above all else. Second, the summoned must obey the summoner's commands absolutely. Third, if the first and second mandates ever conflict, the first mandate takes priority. As John Cossack finishes the last of the ramen broth, Yi-hyuk considers the second mandate. Absolute obedience could actually be useful. But an even more important question comes to mind. Who exactly is this human he summoned? To learn more, he opens the catalog. The entry identifies him as John Cossack, the Cruel Guild's insane assassin. He is an SR-grade human assassin with a manifestation limit of 6 hours and a 3-hour cooldown after being dismissed. More information floods into Yi-hyuk's mind. John Cossack was the Cruel Assassin Guild's greatest headache, a complete lunatic with an astonishing 99% mission success rate. He had even assassinated a 5th Circle Dark Mage. As information about Cossack's final moments pours in, Yi-hyuk suddenly clutches his head in pain while purple energy crackles around him. Random memories overwhelm his mind. His vision blurs as a strange light fills his eye, pulling him into a vortex of glitching purple energy. The next instant, he finds himself witnessing a violent scene from the past. He watches John Cossack move with incredible speed, effortlessly cutting through his targets. Yi-hyuk can only stare in amazement. The vision becomes clearer, revealing Cossack carving through his enemies with terrifying precision, sending heads flying with every strike. As Yi-hyuk realizes he's witnessing Cossack's past, the scene grows even more disturbing. He watches in horror as Cossack carefully wraps a freshly severed head with a red ribbon like a gift. Why the hell is he gift-wrapping their heads? Are they supposed to be presents? Cossack smiles with chilling satisfaction while holding one of his gruesome gifts. The vision then reveals how his story ended. It explains that everything fell apart after a single failed mission. The scene shifts to a massive mansion beneath a full moon. Inside, his final assassination target rests in bed. Cossack silently throws a glowing dagger toward the target. But the target is the Empire's strongest sword master, who effortlessly deflects the surprise attack, sealing Cossack's fate. Yi-hyuk is suddenly thrown back into reality and stumbles backward in shock. John Cossack looks at him with concern and apologetically asks if he has any orders. Still trembling from the horrifying vision, Yi-hyuk struggles to calm himself. Don't be scared, he tells himself. The system clearly states that summoned beings obey their summoner's commands without question. Yi-hyuk takes a deep breath to calm himself before testing the limits of that absolute obedience. He starts with a simple request. Mr. Cossack, please clear away the ramen pot. Cossack immediately snaps to attention. Yes, sir. When Yi-hyuk adds that he should wipe the table as well, Cossack enthusiastically agrees and begins cleaning with remarkable speed. Yi-hyuk watches in amazement. He's incredibly fast, and he doesn't complain once. A faint smile crosses his face as he realizes Cossack is genuinely carrying out every command without hesitation. Calling his name again, Yi-hyuk watches Cossack instantly stop cleaning and turn toward him, awaiting his next order. Yi-hyuk cautiously asks whether absurd requests are off limits. Cossack calmly replies that he obeys his summoner's commands unconditionally. Wanting to test the true extent of that obedience, Yi-hyuk gives an intentionally humiliating order. Barky. When Cossack hesitates for a brief moment, Yi-hyuk clarifies. Like a dog. Cossack stands still for a second. Yi-hyuk immediately grows nervous. Did I go too far? Cossack was a powerful figure in his previous life. His pride should be enormous. What if he suddenly snaps? Instead, Cossack happily begins barking and panting like an excited puppy. Yi-hyuk gives a satisfied thumbs up as the realization sinks in. It really is absolute obedience. Suddenly, loud pounding erupts from the front door, startling both of them. A man shouts for Bang Yi-hyuk to open the door. Yi-hyuk's expression darkens as he remembers. Today's the interest payment deadline. He quickly tells Cossack to get up and hurry. His thoughts drift to the debt that has ruined his life. He borrowed 10 million won from a loan shark to pay for his father's surgery and his younger brother's college tuition. He believed he could repay it, but the outrageous interest caused the debt to grow to more than 50 million won in only 6 months. Even now, he doesn't regret the decision. It may have been foolish, but he had no other choice. Even if he could go back, he knows he would make the same decision again. The pounding continues as the man outside demands to see his face, claiming he just wants to make sure he's doing well. Yi-hyuk calls for Mr. Cossack. With a crazed grin and both daggers already drawn, Cossack eagerly offers to cut off the visitor's head. Yi-hyuk is horrified. That's not what I meant. He's going to create a disaster. Panicking, Yi-hyuk pushes Cossack into the bathroom and orders him to hide, stay completely still, keep quiet, and not make a sound. Cossack obediently asks one question. Can I breathe? Yi-hyuk quickly tells him yes, much to Cossack's relief. The front door is suddenly forced open. A large hand covered in gold rings grabs Yi-hyuk by the collar. The loan shark boss, a heavily built man with a scar across his face and a gold tooth, leans in with a fake smile. He says Yi-hyuk looks healthy and claims he became worried when the interest payment never arrived. Looking defeated, Yi-hyuk apologizes and admits he forgot. After Yi-hyuk transfers the money, the boss casually offers a cruel suggestion. If paying is becoming too difficult, he can always sell one of his kidneys. Life becomes much easier with only one. As the loan sharks prepare to leave, one of the henchmen suggests targeting Yi-hyuk's younger brother instead, remarking that younger people fetch a better price. Hearing his brother threatened, Yi-hyuk's expression turns cold with silent rage. The boss notices the look in his eyes and asks if he's thinking about taking a swing at him. Yi-hyuk immediately forces an awkward smile and scratches the back of his head, insisting he would never do something like that. The boss leaves after warning him to watch himself unless he wants to die without anyone ever knowing. Once the door finally closes, Yi-hyuk lets out a long, exhausted sigh. With the loan sharks gone, John Cossack quietly steps out of the bathroom. Yi-hyuk acknowledges him, and Cossack reports that he remained perfectly hidden and silent because those were his orders. The weight of the entire day crashes down on Yi-hyuk. After working double shifts, awakening, summoning a human, and dealing with loan sharks, he's completely drained. For a brief moment, he wonders if climbing the tower could solve his debt problems. But he quickly dismisses the idea. Money is tempting, but a coward like him could never survive the tower. As he collapses onto the floor in exhaustion, John Cossack calmly asks for his next order. Exhausted, Yi-hyuk asks if the summoned assassin has anything he wants to do, adding that he can dismiss the summon if he wishes to return. To his surprise, John Cossack eagerly asks to watch TV. Too tired to question how he even knows what television is, Yi-hyuk agrees. Cossack politely thanks him, settles in to watch a few drama episodes, and spends the night quietly in front of the screen. Yi-hyuk collapses into bed, completely drained. As the TV plays softly through the quiet room, he watches Cossack become fully absorbed in the drama before closing his eyes. The sound of another person's presence fills the silence of his usually lonely apartment. As he falls asleep, he realizes that having someone nearby, even a summoned being, feels surprisingly comforting. While Yi-hyuk sleeps, John Cossack turns away from the television and silently looks toward a mysterious light, reflecting on how he has spent his life working alone. He remains there as the night passes. The next morning, Yi-hyuk wakes to his 8:00 a.m. alarm. After turning it off, he notices the room is empty while the television continues playing the news. Remembering the summon's 6-hour limit, he confirms that John Cossack has already been released, vaguely recalling seeing the notification in his sleep. Stretching and yawning, he decides to put the strange events of the previous night behind him and get ready for work. As he prepares breakfast, he casually listens to the morning news until the report mentions a brutal murder at the illegal loan company Smile Cash. The name immediately catches his attention. The report reveals that 3 victims were found beheaded, causing him to freeze. When the reporter adds that their severed heads were wrapped with red ribbons, Yi-hyuk drops his toothbrush in shock. The horrifying image from the previous night instantly returns to his mind, John Cossack calmly tying red ribbons around the severed heads of his victims. The cheerful assassin he had spent the evening with suddenly becomes terrifying. Realizing what may have happened, Yiha grabs his head in horror, regretting ever finding the assassin's presence comforting. The news then shows the February 14th Smile Cash murder in detail. Inside the destroyed office, a blood-soaked room contains a lifeless body, with a bloodied hand still wearing several gold rings. The report also displays the 3 severed heads, each decorated with a red ribbon like a trophy while their faces remain hidden in shadow. Watching the broadcast leaves Bong Yihyuk overwhelmed with fear as he realizes he may have summoned the killer responsible. Later, while working at a convenience store, Yihyuk stares at the news article on his phone, becoming even more convinced that the murderer is John Cossack. A customer interrupts his thoughts, but his trauma triggers a vivid hallucination. He imagines one of the ribbon-wrapped severed heads sitting on the checkout counter as though it were a customer's purchase, while a hooded figure stands behind it waiting to be served. Snapping back to reality in complete panic, Yihyuk screams, stumbles backward and knocks over nearby merchandise. His female coworker immediately rushes over and finds him sitting on the floor, shaken and embarrassed. Seeing that he is in no condition to continue, she apologizes to the waiting customer and takes over the checkout herself. Yihyuk's trauma is already affecting the people around him. Later, he wanders alone through the snowy streets, letting out a heavy sigh as his breath fades into the cold air. Surrounded by happy couples, he is consumed by guilt, wondering if those deaths happened because of him. The snowy city skyline under the moon reflects his cold and lonely state of mind. Back in his apartment, he opens John Cossack's catalog entry. It identifies him as a super rare assassin known as the Cruel Guild's Insane Killer, confirming Yiha's fear that Cossack truly is a ruthless assassin. Sitting on the floor, Yiha tries to reassure himself that Cossack would never harm his own summoner, but he still can't shake his fear. He gathers his courage, activates his summoning power, and attempts to designate John Cossack as his summon. Before the summon can proceed, however, the system requires him to submit a satisfaction rating. Realizing why the catalog included a rating system, Yiha becomes frustrated. He initially wants to give Cossack the lowest possible score for committing murders without being ordered, but he hesitates. Remembering how upset customers' low ratings made his mother when she worked as a rental water purifier coordinator, he cannot bring himself to leave a 1-star review. Accepting that he is too soft-hearted, he settles on a 3-star rating instead. As soon as the rating is submitted, the designated summon is approved. A burst of purple light fills the room as John Cossack reappears, greeting Yiha with a crisp salute and sincerely thanking him for the 3-star rating while promising to do even better next time. His innocent attitude leaves Yiha conflicted, making it hard to believe this cheerful man could be a murderer. Summoning his courage, he directly asks whether Cossack killed the lone sharks who came to his house. Cossack calmly confirms that he eliminated them just before the summoning period ended. The confirmation horrifies Yiha. Although he reminds himself that Cossack will not harm his summoner, he struggles to stay calm while standing in front of an actual murderer. When Yiha questions how he even found the lone shark's office, Cossack explains that he secretly placed a pursuit mark on one of them when they barged into Yiha's home, allowing him to track them down later. Realizing it is likely one of Cossack's abilities, Yiha asks why he went that far. Cossack simply explains that they were a potential threat, so eliminating them beforehand was the safest option. Yiha protests that he never ordered him to do it, but Cossack explains that his actions were based on the 3rd law of the summoned. A system window then displays the 3 laws, beginning with the first 2, protecting the summoner's life above all else and obeying the summoner's commands absolutely. Cossack explains the 3rd law of the summoned. Whenever the duty to protect the summoner conflicts with following the summoner's orders, protecting the summoner always takes priority. In simple terms, absolute obedience can be ignored if the summoner's life is in danger. Yihyuk tests the rule by asking whether Cossack would obey an order to kill him. Cossack immediately rejects the idea, confirming that such a command would never be followed. Still unconvinced, Yihyuk argues that there was never any real threat from the lone sharks and that Cossack's judgment seems completely arbitrary. Cossack admits the 3rd law can be interpreted broadly, but insists his decision was reasonable because he believed the loan sharks would eventually threaten Yihyuk's life. Yihyuk apologizes after nearly calling him a psychopath, but Cossack casually accepts it, mentioning that he has heard such remarks many times before. Although Yihyuk understands his reasoning to some extent, he realizes how dangerous that mindset could be. He imagines walking down a crowded street with Cossack. If someone angrily threatened him after a minor collision, Cossack would likely interpret the words as a real danger and respond by killing the person, leaving another severed head tied with a red ribbon. Determined to prevent that, Yihyuk tries to explain that murder only creates more problems for him. Before he can finish, Cossack mistakenly assumes he is being scolded and immediately drops to his knees to apologize. Startled, Yi-hyuk tells him to stand up and firmly explains that killing people for his sake only puts him in greater danger. Cossack insists no one would ever find out, but Yi-hyuk presses him to promise not to kill anyone unless his life is in immediate danger, such as having a knife held to his throat. Before Yi-hyuk can fully explain, Cossack salutes enthusiastically and assures him he will judge situations carefully. His energetic response makes it obvious he still misses the point. Accepting that the conversation has gone nowhere, Yi-hyuk tells Cossack to return. Just before disappearing, Cossack asks whether Yi-hyuk has no intention of climbing the tower. The question leaves Yi-hyuk conflicted. He knows climbing the tower is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but the thought of the terrifying monsters inside reminds him how easily he could die. Changing the subject, Yi-hyuk asks whether Cossack ever served another summoner. Cossack confirms that he did and remembers his previous master as someone both strong and courageous. Comparing himself to that person, Yi-hyuk feels ashamed. He admits that others use their awakened abilities to protect the world, while he lacks the courage to risk his own life and sees himself as nothing more than a coward. Instead of criticizing him, Cossack unexpectedly praises him as the best summoner. Grabbing Yi-hyuk by the shoulders, he explains that a summoner's greatest virtue is putting safety first. According to Cossack, bravery only leads to unnecessary deaths, and if the summoner dies, the summons disappear as well. Yi-hyuk struggles to follow the logic, but Cossack reassures him that he will handle all the dirty work himself. As he fades away, he leaves Yi-hyuk with one final piece of advice: to keep playing it safe and live a long life. That night, Yi-hyuk lies awake, unable to sleep peacefully as he continues worrying about whether he should climb the tower. By morning, he finally sits up, having made his decision with quiet resignation. After making up his mind, Yi-hyuk convinces himself that climbing the tower is not for someone like him. With the loan sharks gone along with his debt, he decides to live a quiet, ordinary life. Standing on his rooftop, he stretches and promises himself that if he works honestly and safely, everything will eventually improve. Just then his phone rings. It is his father, who tells him that his rehabilitation requires transferring to a larger hospital. Before Yi-hyuk can process the news, his mother tells him she has also lost her job. She tries to reassure him and explains that she only called because they had not been able to reach him. After promising to visit them and asking them not to overwork themselves, Yi-hyuk ends the call and quietly covers his face as the weight of his family's situation sinks in. Standing silently beneath the clear sky, his despair gradually turns into determination. Forced to act, Yi-hyuk prepares to enter the tower. He equips himself with a construction helmet, a safety vest, a metal bat, and a work-in-progress sign as a makeshift shield. His plan is simple: explore only the first floor, leave immediately if anything seems dangerous, and take advantage of his day off from work. Before entering, he prepares to summon an ally but suddenly realizes he does not have to rely on the unpredictable John Cossack. Hopping for a stronger summon, he attempts a random summon, imagining that he might receive an even rarer companion. His hopes are immediately crushed when the system informs him that random summoning is on a 28-day cooldown. With no other choice, Yi-hyuk summons John Cossack instead. Cossack appears in a flash of purple light, enthusiastically thanking Yi-hyuk for the 5-star rating and declaring himself ready to follow any order. Nervously, Yi-hyuk wonders if Cossack somehow knows he tried to summon someone else before awkwardly welcoming him. Gathering his courage, Yi-hyuk announces that he has decided to enter the tower. Cossack praises his bravery, prompting Yi-hyuk to immediately correct himself and explain that he only intends to look around the first floor before leaving if it becomes dangerous. Satisfied with that cautious approach, Cossack approves of the plan. He casually throws away Yi-hyuk's bat and makeshift shield, insisting that he will serve as both his weapon and protector. Confidently, he promises that once inside the tower, Yi-hyuk will not have to lift a finger. Although intimidated, Yi-hyuk feels somewhat reassured and agrees. A system prompt asks whether they wish to enter the Korea Black Tower, nodding that only the first floor is currently accessible. After confirming, they are pulled into a digital vortex and transported into the tower. Cossack dives in confidently while Yi-hyuk is dragged behind him in a panic. The violent teleportation ends as they land on the first floor inside a shimmering safe zone surrounded by a barren wasteland. Looking around, Yi-hyuk realizes he has finally entered the Black Tower. The rough transition leaves him severely motion sick, and he collapses to the ground vomiting. Cossack calmly pats him on the back and reassures him that he will get used to it soon. After Yihyuk recovers, John Cossack takes the lead and tells him to follow beyond the safe zone. As they move forward, a system message informs Yihyuk that his physical abilities have improved with his level and that he can now use characteristics and combat skills. Clenching his fist, he feels noticeably stronger despite still being only level 1. Another system window appears with his first mission: defeat 5 tough-skinned fatty grubs within 2 hours. Failing the mission will result in either death or forfeiture. Cossack quickly spots the targets in the distance, a group of large, armored grubs crawling across the wasteland. Yihyuk remembers reading that the first floor is meant to test basic skills. Although the tough-skinned fatty grubs have almost no offensive ability, their durable skin makes them difficult to kill. He also recalls that most players needed nearly 30 minutes just to defeat one. Encouraged by his new strength, Yihyuk decides to try defeating a single grub himself. Cossack questions why he would make things harder than necessary, but Yihyuk cautiously approaches one of the seemingly harmless creatures. Just as he prepares to attack, he realizes he forgot to borrow a weapon from Cossack. Before he can step back, the grub senses him and suddenly opens its body, revealing a massive mouth with a glowing green core. The terrifying sight instantly destroys Yihyuk's confidence. Frozen with fear, he stumbles backward and desperately calls for Cossack's help. Delighted by the request, Cossack praises his decision and immediately charges forward. Gathering blue energy around his fist, he lands a single devastating blow that explodes the first grub in a burst of green fluid. He then tells Yihyuk to stay back before rushing the remaining monsters. Moving at incredible speed, Cossack unleashes a barrage of glowing energy blades that cuts through every remaining grub at once. As he calmly lands, he identifies the technique as blade explosion. The defeated grubs instantly shatter into glowing blue particles, leaving Yihyuk staring in complete disbelief. Watching every enemy fall in an instant, he realizes they were all defeated effortlessly. A series of system messages then confirms that Yihyuk has cleared the first floor, gained a level, earned a 100G magic stone, and achieved an S++ clear rank, which rewards him with a platinum badge. Overjoyed by how easily everything went, Yihyuk excitedly imagines that he might become rich before long. The scene briefly shows that every player in South Korea has a similar system interface. Students, office workers, people with disabilities, and even visitors at PC cafes all interact with their own status windows, showing how the tower has become a part of everyday life. Another system message announces that Yihyuk is now eligible to challenge the second floor before automatically returning him to the outside world. Surrounded by a pillar of light, Yihyuk and Cossack are teleported back to his apartment. Checking the time on his phone, Yihyuk is stunned to discover that the entire tower expedition took only 5 minutes. Beside him, Cossack simply smiles cheerfully. Back in the apartment, Cossack congratulates Yihyuk on clearing the floor. Embarrassed, Yihyuk points out that he barely did anything, but Cossack insists that staying out of danger was exactly the right decision. Yihyuk recalls hearing that most players barely survive the first floor after struggling to kill the grubs, making their effortless victory feel almost unbelievable. His attention then shifts to the rewards that have appeared on his table: a glowing magic stone and a platinum badge. Picking up the crystal, he excitedly realizes he's holding a real magic stone for the first time. The system explains that magic stones are an essential resource in modern industry. Although their value has dropped since the towers first appeared 20 years ago, a 100G stone is still worth around 50,000 won. Another explanation notes that after 2 decades of towers appearing around the world, basic knowledge about them has become common through media and the internet. Yihyuk then examines the platinum badge. Having never heard of such an item before, he wonders what it is, but for now, he is simply thrilled that he earned 50,000 won in only a few minutes. With his work finished, Cossack announces that he is going to watch another TV drama. Before he can leave, however, Yihyuk invites him to celebrate with dinner. He serves jokbal along with several side dishes. The meal immediately puts Cossack on edge as he nervously asks whether the jokbal is spicy. Yihyuk reassures him that he deliberately ordered the regular version after learning that Cossack cannot handle spicy food. Even then, Cossack cautiously sniffs the food before finally relaxing. Amused by his complete lack of spice tolerance, Yihyuk watches him happily enjoy the meal. During dinner, Yihyuk asks about Cossack's unusual way of speaking. Cossack explains that he picked up those speech patterns after spending a long time with his previous summoner. Yihyuk jokingly compares it to being influenced by an ex, except in this case it was an ex-summoner. Cossack offers to change the way he speaks if it is bothersome, but Yihyuk says he actually enjoys it, and the two share a laugh. Watching Cossack happily eat, Yihyuk reaches an important realization. With someone like Cossack by his side, climbing the tower no longer feels nearly as dangerous. He finally believes it is something he can do. The next morning, Yi-hyuk puts a new daily schedule on his wall. He quits his day labor job while keeping his convenience store shift during the day and his restaurant job at night. Every free moment between work is now dedicated to clearing the tower alongside Cossack. To keep Cossack's satisfaction rating high, Yi-hyuk asks him to dance. Cossack enthusiastically complies, earning another perfect rating. Yi-hyuk jokes that if he could give 10 stars instead of 5, he would. Curious about the system, he asks whether the satisfaction rating is really that important. Cossack explains that higher ratings provide several benefits, including longer manifestation time, higher rank, and a greater chance of answering future summons. Understanding the advantages, Yi-hyuk readily accepts the explanation. With their new routine established, they enter the Black Tower again. A system message announces their arrival on the second floor, where the new mission requires them to defeat 10 quick-witted fatty grubs within 2 hours. As the faster grubs race across the wasteland, Yi-hyuk is surprised by their speed and asks Cossack what they should do on the second floor. Cossack responds with complete confidence, ready to take charge once again. When Yi-hyuk asks what they should do, Cossack confidently replies that there will not even be time for a strategy, holding up 3 fingers. He declares that the floor will be cleared in just 3 minutes. Blue energy surges around him as he promises to finish quickly and escort Yi-hyuk safely home. Caught up in the excitement, Yi-hyuk promises to treat him to chicken and beer afterward. The offer immediately motivates Cossack, who happily thanks him before charging into battle. Using Blade Explosion once again, Cossack instantly wipes out every quick-witted fatty grub. Watching the effortless victory, Yi-hyuk can only stare in disbelief. A system message confirms the successful completion of the second floor mission. Yi-hyuk levels up, receives a 200G magic stone, and earns another S++ clear rank along with a platinum badge. Looking at the rewards, he cannot believe how easy everything has become. The clears are so fast that he realizes he can finish a floor before heading to his morning part-time job. Without wasting any time, they immediately challenge the third floor. Their new objective is to defeat 10 ice-cold fatty grubs. As they arrive, Cossack compliments Yi-hyuk for improving his landing while Yi-hyuk confidently poses before the battle begins. The third floor is cleared just as effortlessly. More system messages announce another level up, a 300G magic stone, another S++ clear rank, and another platinum badge. Their momentum continues as they quickly conquer the 4th and 5th floors with the same overwhelming ease. After clearing the 5th floor, the system announces that Yi-hyuk has collected 5 platinum badges from achieving S++ clear ranks. As a special reward, his summoner trait is enhanced, increasing the maximum number of simultaneous summons from 1 to 2. Reading the updated status window, Yi-hyuk is stunned. Even though John Cossack alone has been effortlessly carrying every battle, he can now summon 2 companions at the same time. Realizing how valuable this upgrade is, he sees it as a major advantage for the challenges ahead. His excitement fades slightly when he checks the cooldown for random summon and discovers that more than 20 days still remain. Deciding to be patient, he reminds himself that having Cossack alone has already transformed his situation. Compared to when he had to face everything by himself, the powerful mercenary has made climbing the tower far safer. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Awaken Management Administration in Hanamdong, Seoul. Inside the office, team leader Jihyun Gwangil waits anxiously for the next global tower announcement, wondering when it will arrive. Deputy Director Lee Mina approaches and immediately guesses what he is thinking. After startling him, she confirms that a new announcement has just been released. It reports another S++ clear for the Korea Black Tower, this time on the 6th floor. Jihyun explains that global announcements have recently been appearing one after another, and every one of them reports an S++ clear. Since the floors have been cleared consecutively from the 1st through the 6th, he is convinced they are all the work of a single individual with unprecedented talent. If the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th floors are also cleared with S++ ranks, there will be no doubt about the identity of this extraordinary player. The atmosphere inside the Awaken Management Administration grows tense as Director Park Jiangsu finally speaks. He reminds everyone that Korea's highest recorded tower clear had only reached rank A, and until now, No one even knew ranks above that existed or that an S++ clear would trigger a global announcement. He explains that, in today's world, talented players are often recruited by other countries, with some even being secretly abducted before they can be naturalized elsewhere. Determined not to let that happen, he orders his staff to identify the mysterious player immediately and closely monitor every newly registered awakener. 2 days later, the scene shifts back to Yihyuk's apartment. As he asks whether today's goal is the 8th floor, Cossack cheerfully replies while washing dishes in bright pink rubber gloves. With one floor being cleared every day, everything has been progressing smoothly. Confident that the first 10 floors are considered the beginner zone, Yihyuk and Cossack enter the 8th floor, where a mission appears requiring them to defeat 10 red thorn frog warriors. The pair is immediately surrounded by monstrous frog warriors. One of them launches its long tongue like a spear, but Cossack reacts even faster. His blades flash with blue energy as he cuts through the attack before effortlessly eliminating the entire group in a blur of precise strikes. System messages confirm the successful completion of the 8th floor mission. Yihyuk levels up, earns more magic stones and healing potions, and receives another S++ clear rank along with another platinum badge, triggering yet another global announcement. Back at the apartment, Cossack congratulates Yihyuk on another successful climb. Yihyuk laughs, admitting that he hardly contributes anything, but Cossack reminds him that simply entering the tower is the hardest step. Although grateful for how easily Cossack carries every mission, Yihyuk also reminds himself that things may become much more difficult after the 10th floor. Wanting to reward him, Yihyuk offers Cossack some spending money and suggests he go out, enjoy himself, and eat something good before returning, as long as he stays out of trouble. Cossack firmly refuses, explaining that he cannot leave his summoner's side and would rather stay home watching television. Wondering whether that loyalty extends even to casual suggestions, Yihyuk instead proposes ordering chicken. The idea instantly excites Cossack, who eagerly reminds him to order a non-spicy flavor, preferably honey cheese or another sweet variety. While waiting for the food, Yihyuk checks his rewards. He decides to save the newly acquired tower-exclusive healing potion for Cossack. Looking through his inventory, he realizes he has already accumulated 3.6 kilograms of magic stones, worth roughly 1.8 million won, and begins considering whether it is finally time to sell them. By the 10th day of climbing, Yihyuk is preparing to challenge the 10th floor. Feeling exhausted, he admits that he wants to quit one of his part-time jobs. What began as a cautious attempt to explore the tower has turned into a routine of clearing one floor every single day. Thinking back to the previous day's 9th floor mission against the man-eating corpse flower, he realizes it was only easy because Cossack handled everything. Clearing missions and earning S++ rewards has become routine, making the entire process feel almost unreal. Even so, he reminds himself not to forget that the dependable companion beside him is still the same assassin who once killed 3 people without hesitation. Just then, a system message appears for his designated summon. Thanks to Yihyuk's consistently high satisfaction ratings, John Cossack's manifestation time increases by 1 hour. Delighted by the reward, Cossack happily thanks him and promises to continue handling everything on his behalf. Smiling, Yihyuk feels that giving Cossack the highest rating was well worth it. As they prepare for the next challenge, a series of system messages announces their arrival on the 10th floor. Their physical abilities are adjusted to match their current level, and their traits and combat skills become available. Standing inside the 10th floor forest, Yihyuk immediately notices the difference. A hexagonal pattern briefly flashes across the sky as he feels his body becoming much stronger. Mana begins flowing through him, filling him with newfound confidence. Convinced he has finally become strong enough to contribute, he proudly tells Cossack that this time he will fight alongside him. Cossack immediately rejects the idea, insisting that if Yihyuk were injured even slightly, he would never forgive himself. He tells Yihyuk that simply supporting and praising him is more than enough. Still determined, Yihyuk insists that he has to help this time. Before he can do anything, a massive eye appears from behind a tree. Moments later, an enormous praying mantis emerges, towering over both of them. The sight instantly destroys Yihyuk's confidence as he wonders how any player could possibly defeat a monster like that. Mistaking Yihyuk's fear for wounded pride, Cossack comments that sending 2 people to kill a mere insect might seem excessive. Yihyuk quietly admits that his pride has definitely taken a hit, though not for the reason Cossack thinks. As the giant mantis hisses and prepares to attack, Yi Hyuk immediately abandons any thought of fighting himself and simply cheers Cossack on instead. Cossack charges forward in a blur, unleashing a web of brilliant blue energy that slices the giant praying mantis into countless pieces. He calmly announces that the mission is complete as the monster disintegrates behind him. System messages confirm the successful completion of the 10th floor mission. Yi Hyuk levels up, earns 1 kilogram of magic stones, receives another S++ global clear announcement, and obtains another platinum badge. They also unlock access to the 11th floor before being returned from the Black Tower. Back in his apartment, Yi Hyuk checks his inventory and sees that he now has a total of 5.5 kilograms of magic stones. Looking at his latest platinum badge, he remembers that another special perk is awarded after collecting 10 badges. The system then grants the new reward, allowing him to copy one skill from a summoned companion. A list of John Cossack's abilities appears, including Blade Explosion and Shadow Step. Before Yi Hyuk can decide, Cossack strongly recommends copying Shadow Step, explaining that it is the perfect skill for escaping quickly if anything ever happens to him. Although Yi Hyuk is offended by the suggestion and insists he is not the type to abandon everyone just to save himself, he ultimately chooses Shadow Step anyway. Trying to justify the decision, he convinces himself that mobility is an essential part of combat. Curious whether the skill works outside the tower, he immediately attempts to use Shadow Step in his apartment. The attempt fails completely, leaving him exhausted on the floor. Frustrated by the inconsistency, he complains that summoning works perfectly while copied skills do not. Watching from the side, Cossack simply agrees that he has a point. On the 11th day of his tower journey, Yi Hyuk nervously calls the Awakener Management Administration. After awkwardly introducing himself and explaining that he has awakened, the operator congratulates him and offers to send government staff to his home. Yi Hyuk provides his address and they promise to arrive as soon as possible. Having finally made the call, Yi Hyuk collapses in relief, feeling that it was the bravest decision he has ever made. Meanwhile, at the Awakener Management Administration, Deputy Director Lee Mina walks toward a waiting black sedan, where team leader Jihyun Gwangil asks about the Awakener they investigated in Daegu the previous day. Lee Mina quietly replies that she does not believe that person is the mysterious player responsible for the recent string of S++ clears either. Gwangil sighs in frustration, wondering whether the mysterious player even exists. Lee Mina informs him that another awakening report has come in that day and asks if he wants to investigate. Without hesitation, he agrees, determined to keep searching. If they find the player behind the S++ clears, he intends to recruit them into the elite team by offering every benefit the administration can provide. Meanwhile, back at his apartment, Yi Hyuk frantically cleans every corner of the room before the administration officials arrive. When the doorbell rings, he nervously opens the door and welcomes the two visitors inside, apologizing for the cramped apartment. Team leader Jihyun Gwangil introduces himself and Deputy Director Lee Mina, explaining that she is also an awakened player and can answer any questions Yi Hyuk might have. Already nervous, Yi Hyuk becomes even more flustered upon meeting her. As they step inside, Lee Mina suddenly walks right up to him and studies his face from only inches away. Completely caught off guard, Yi Hyuk freezes. In a serious tone, she quietly asks whether he is the mysterious S++ player. For a brief moment, Yi Hyuk feels as though his biggest secret has been exposed. His mind races as he wonders whether awakened people have some special way of identifying each other. Deciding to deny everything, he awkwardly claims he has heard about the S++ player but insists it is not him. His forced smile and stiff behavior only make the lie more obvious. Lee Mina immediately recognizes the poor attempt at acting, but before the awkward situation can continue, she suddenly scolds her partner for putting unnecessary pressure on the new awakener. He quickly apologizes for his behavior, and Yi Hyuk realizes with relief that they were simply testing his reaction rather than exposing his secret. The tense atmosphere is then interrupted by an official educational video featuring Korea's Black Tower mascot, Tabi. The video explains that 20 years earlier, enormous black towers suddenly appeared around the world overnight. Despite military and scientific efforts, no one was able to approach them because of an invisible barrier surrounding each tower. Everything changed when awakened players appeared. Inside the towers, ordinary people gain access to powerful abilities and skills, allowing them to clear floors, earn valuable rewards, and contribute significantly to the global economy. The video then explains the danger of neglecting a tower. If a country's highest uncleared floor remains unconquered for 6 months, a collapse countdown begins. Clearing a new highest floor stops the countdown, but if no progress is made, the tower eventually collapses. 3 years earlier, this happened in Mumbai, India, causing the entire city to disappear. Tabi then shifts the focus to South Korea. The country has only one black tower, located deep in the mountains of Gangwon province. Although players make up only a tiny fraction of the population, Korea's progress has been exceptional. The nation has currently reached the 65th floor, the second highest achievement in the world after the United States, which has cleared the 66th floor. The video concludes by describing awakened players as the heroes of the modern era, comparing humanity's exploration of the Black Towers to the discovery of new continents. It encourages every newly awakened person to register as an official player and help advance humanity's future. As the presentation ends, the scene returns to Yi-hyuk's apartment. Manager Lee explains that the mandatory orientation is over and begins the registration interview. He asks Yi-hyuk to confirm whether he has truly awakened. Yi-hyuk confirms that he has entered the tower and cleared several floors, even showing the magic stones he has collected. The manager then asks which floor he has reached. When Yi-hyuk casually answers that he has cleared the 10th floor, both agents are visibly surprised. Since the recent S++ global announcements also reached the 10th floor, Lee Mina's suspicion immediately grows. She quietly asks whether he has heard about the recent S++ global announcements. Trying to stay calm, Yi-hyuk awkwardly replies that he has heard of them and comments that whoever achieved those clears must be an incredible player. Despite his efforts to appear relaxed, his nervous expression only makes him look more suspicious. Changing the subject, Manager Lee explains the two registration options available to awakened players. The first is the elite climbing team, which works closely with the government and receives extensive support, including protection outside the tower, in exchange for the responsibility of pushing to higher floors. The second is the general climbing team, where players freely choose their own climbing schedule with far fewer obligations. As the manager begins describing the benefits of the elite program, Yi-hyuk's imagination runs wild. He pictures himself being exposed as the mysterious S++ player, constantly surrounded by reporters and monitored wherever he goes. When Manager Lee adds that elite members are required to wear body cameras while climbing, Yi-hyuk immediately decides that the elite team is absolutely not for him. Before the explanation is even finished, Yi-hyuk firmly declines the offer. The sudden refusal leaves both agents surprised. When Manager Lee encourages him to think about it more carefully, Yi-hyuk insists that he is satisfied with joining the general climbing team. He claims he has no exceptional talent, finds climbing frightening, and only wants to clear reasonable floors for reasonable rewards. Although surprised by his determination, Manager Lee accepts the decision. Watching the exchange, Lee Mina concludes that he is simply an overly cautious player who prefers safe progress over ambition. In her mind, someone with that mindset would never qualify for the elite team anyway, whose members must possess a strong desire to keep climbing. With the registration nearly complete, Manager Lee asks Yi-hyuk to enter the tower one final time so they can officially verify his awakening. Yi-hyuk agrees, reasoning that he might as well use his daily tower entry instead of wasting it. At the same time, he realizes the agents are probably still trying to determine whether he is the mysterious S++ player. To lower their expectations, Yi-hyuk tells them that he plans to clear a floor but usually takes almost the full 2-hour time limit. Manager Lee says they do not mind waiting, while Lee Mina encourages him to take his time without feeling pressured. Before leaving, Yi-hyuk politely tells them to make themselves comfortable, watch television, and help themselves to anything in the refrigerator while he is gone. He then activates the tower portal, disappears into the blue light, and leaves the two agents waiting in his apartment. After the portal closes, Manager Lee confirms that Yi-hyuk is indeed an awakened player and asks Lee Mina for her opinion. She admits that she cannot judge his talent yet, but based on his timid behavior and lack of confidence, she believes he is unlikely to make it past the 11th floor. Manager Lee asks why Lee Mina is so certain. She explains that she has personally cleared the 11th floor before, where players must defeat 100 long-tailed burrow centipedes. Although the monsters are not particularly strong, their grotesque appearance and overwhelming numbers are enough to test a player's fear. Based on Yi-hyuk's timid behavior, she believes he will retreat to the safe zone and abandon the mission. Agreeing with her assessment, Manager Lee decides to report back to the director, convinced that this investigation has led to another dead end. Meanwhile, inside the 11th floor, Yi-hyuk immediately activates his targeted summon, bringing John Cossack into the tower. After greeting him with a salute, Cossack waits for instructions as the mission appears, requiring them to defeat 100 long-tailed burrow centipedes. Disgusted by the objective, Yi-hyuk orders Cossack to hunt as slowly as possible. He explains that government officials are waiting outside and that finishing too quickly would trigger another S++ global announcement. He even plans to dismiss Cossack before leaving the tower so nothing seems unusual. Understanding the plan, Cossack agrees. Confident that he can finally avoid drawing attention, Yi-hyuk believes a slow clear will convince everyone that he is an ordinary player. Cossack begins fighting the centipedes at a deliberately slower pace. Satisfied with the reduced speed, Yi-hyuk feels everything is going according to plan. Suddenly, a giant centipede bursts from beneath his feet. The horrifying sight completely paralyzes him as more centipedes rush toward him. Terrified of insects, he cannot move or even activate his escape skill. Seeing his summoner in danger, Cossack immediately abandons his previous orders. Ignoring the instruction to take it slow, he rushes forward and unleashes a relentless barrage of attacks, tearing through the swarm with overwhelming speed. Yi-hyuk desperately shouts for him to slow down, repeatedly reminding him that it is a direct order. Cossack refuses, explaining that protecting his summoner's life always comes before any other command. Watching his carefully planned disguise fall apart, Yi-hyuk realizes exactly what is about to happen. A system announcement appears, declaring an S++ clear for the 11th floor of Korea's Black Tower. Moments later, another notification awards him yet another platinum badge before informing him that the 12th floor is now available. As they are teleported back, Cossack apologizes for ignoring the order, but Yi-hyuk can only sigh in frustration. Back in the apartment, manager Lee and Lee Mina continue waiting. After several minutes, Lee Mina remarks that Yi-hyuk should be giving up and returning soon. Instead, a brilliant global announcement suddenly appears in the middle of the room, declaring an S++ clear for the 11th floor. At that exact moment, Yi-hyuk returns through the tower portal and appears directly in front of the stunned agents. They immediately connect the timing of the announcement with Yi-hyuk's return, making the truth impossible to ignore. Realizing he can no longer hide his identity, Yi-hyuk lets out a quiet sigh. His expression becomes calm and serious as he accepts that his secret has finally been exposed. Behind him, John Cossack appears alongside another shadowy armored figure wielding twin daggers. Reaching out toward the stunned agents, Yi-hyuk prepares to make his next declaration. Yi-hyuk's imagination, the worst possible outcome plays out. John Cossack appears surrounded by a menacing blue aura and decides that the two government agents must be silenced. Before Yi-hyuk can stop him, Cossack rushes toward them at incredible speed. Even when Yi-hyuk desperately orders him to tie them up instead, the horrifying vision ends with both agents beheaded. Overcome with panic, Yi-hyuk screams that he never told Cossack to kill them and repeatedly apologizes. He suddenly snaps back to reality, still apologizing out loud. Manager Lee and Lee Mina look at him in confusion after finding him on the floor beside the sofa. Concerned, they ask if he is all right, noticing that he is covered in cold sweat. Embarrassed, Yi-hyuk quickly assures them that he is fine, realizing he has let his paranoia get the better of him. Manager Lee resumes the conversation, and once again explains that someone with Yi-hyuk's apparent talent belongs on the elite team. Still trying to hide his identity, Yi-hyuk awkwardly claims that the S++ announcement must have belonged to another player whose timing simply happened to overlap with his tower run. Although Manager Lee finds the coincidence difficult to believe, Yi-hyuk firmly insists that he has nothing to do with the S++ clears. Accepting his explanation for the moment, Manager Lee presents a contract. To Yi-hyuk's surprise, it is not the standard agreement he requested but a special ultra-elite contract reserved for exceptional players. The contract offers extraordinary benefits, including an annual salary of 12 billion won, government-provided real estate, VIP treatment, full-time security, and even legal immunity privileges. Manager Lee explains that these benefits are currently granted only to South Korea's top-ranked player Yoo Cheolman, and that the contract represents the highest level of support the government can provide. Despite the unbelievable offer, Yi-hyuk immediately refuses. He firmly states that he will only accept a standard player contract. Surprised by such a strong rejection, Manager Lee asks for his reason. Yi-hyuk honestly admits that he dislikes being the center of attention. He explains that whenever people focus on him, it becomes emotionally exhausting. Even simple situations such as speaking with store employees or becoming a regular customer somewhere make him uncomfortable enough to avoid returning. Manager Lee summarizes his explanation by concluding that Yi-hyuk is simply extremely introverted. Privately, however, Yi-hyuk has another reason. Although climbing the tower has been enjoyable so far, he has only reached the 11th floor. He has no idea what awaits him in the future and lacks the confidence to accept the enormous responsibility that comes with the elite position. Understanding Understanding his concerns, manager Lee decides not to pressure him any further and agrees to prepare a standard contract instead. After the agreement is finalized, Yi-hyuk reflects on his choice. He knows most people would think he should have accepted the elite contract and enjoyed all its benefits. However, he also understands that those benefits come with equally heavy responsibilities. Elite players are expected to continue challenging unexplored upper floors, whether they want to or not. Watching the agents leave, Yi-hyuk quietly reaffirms his decision. He has no desire to carry that burden. As long as his life is better than it was before, that is enough for him. The scene shifts to the Awakena Management Bureau headquarters in Hanamdong, Seoul, where manager Lee and Lee Mina report their findings to Commissioner Park Junsu. Park questions why their final report differs so much from the initial one. Manager Lee confirms that Yi-hyuk truly appeared timid and lacked any strong desire to keep climbing. Confused, Park asks how someone with that personality could possibly achieve repeated S++ clears. Manager Lee admits he cannot explain it. In his opinion, Yi-hyuk seems unusually ordinary despite his extraordinary accomplishments. When Park asks whether they might have misjudged him, Manager Lee firmly denies the possibility, pointing out that the timing of the global announcements matched Yi-hyuk's tower runs too perfectly. Growing impatient, Park dismisses Yi-hyuk's personality as irrelevant. His talent is what matters, and he orders his staff to recruit Yi-hyuk into the elite team by any means necessary. Manager Lee accepts the order without hesitation. Back at his apartment, Yi-hyuk replays the earlier meeting in his head, satisfied that he firmly rejected the elite offer. He then turns to John Cossack, blaming him for exposing everything. Although pretending to be angry exhausted him, he warns Cossack that if he ignores another order, he will be dismissed immediately. Cossack obediently accepts the warning. Yi-hyuk then enters the tower once again. The 12th floor mission requires him to defeat 20 icicle spear weasels within 3 hours. Upon arriving on the frozen floor, Yi-hyuk repeatedly reminds Cossack to clear it as slowly as possible. Believing he has finally earned Cossack's trust, he is confident this attempt will avoid another S++ announcement. However, the freezing environment is far colder than he expected. Despite trying to endure it, he begins shivering uncontrollably. Seeing his summoner's condition, Cossack immediately becomes alarmed. Convinced that Yi-hyuk's health is in danger, he ignores the order to slow down and rushes into battle at full speed. Yi-hyuk protests and insists he is fine, but Cossack's interpretation of the summoned laws leaves him no choice. Protecting his summoner always comes first. He rapidly defeats every icicle spear weasel, once again completing the mission in record time. Another global announcement immediately appears, confirming an S++ clear for the 12th floor and rewarding Yi-hyuk with yet another platinum badge. His plan to stay unnoticed fails once again. Almost immediately, Manager Lee calls to ask whether Yi-hyuk really cleared the 12th floor. Trying to avoid further attention, Yi-hyuk casually confirms it while claiming the 13th floor will probably be much more difficult. After ending the call, he glares at his phone in frustration. Beside him, Cossack proudly celebrates another successful mission, completely unaware that he has ruined Yi-hyuk's plan yet again. When Cossack happily announces that he wants to watch television, Yi-hyuk immediately dismisses him before he can sit down. Watching Cossack disappear into particles of light, Yi-hyuk scolds him for ignoring orders and declares that disobedient summons do not get any rewards. The story then jumps to the 13th floor, where the mission is to cross a corridor filled with deadly traps. Determined to keep Yi-hyuk safe, Cossack ignores his protests, picks him up, and carries him through the entire corridor while destroying every trap along the way. On the 14th floor, they face a cave filled with giant eyeball bats whose attacks affect a wide area. Once again, Cossack refuses to take any chances. Before the monsters can threaten Yi-hyuk, he wipes them out with a powerful ranged attack. Another S++ global announcement appears for the 14th floor. Having completely given up on hiding his achievements, Yi-hyuk simply accepts that whatever happens next is out of his control. Back at home, Yi-hyuk checks his bank account and finds 2 recent deposits, 2.75 million won from selling his magic stones and another 2 million won as the standard player support fund. Adding everything together, he realizes he has earned more than 7 million won in just 14 days. Calculating the potential rewards ahead, he estimates that if he can continue climbing safely to the 20th floor, the magic stones alone could earn him around 1 million won a day through the administration's sales program, with no taxes or commission fees. Excited by the prospect of making roughly 30 million won a month, he seriously considers quitting his part-time jobs. The next day, after summoning John Cossack, Yi-hyuk lightly smacks him on the head for repeatedly disobeying his orders. Cossack immediately apologizes, but Yi-hyuk tells him not to worry about slowing down anymore. Since the administration already knows about his repeated S++ clears, there is no longer any reason to hide them. Instead, Yi-hyuk becomes interested in collecting even more platinum badges. Realizing that every 5 badges have rewarded him with another perk, he grows eager to obtain the next one, believing that additional perks will only make him safer. With renewed motivation, the two enter the 15th floor of the Black Tower. Their mission is to defeat 20 goblin workers. Hidden among the trees, Yi-hyuk observes the goblins and notes that they are the first intelligent humanoid monsters he has encountered. Unlike previous enemies, they can alert one another if even a single goblin escapes, making the mission far more dangerous. He quietly tells Cossack to stay hidden and eliminate every goblin before any of them can call for reinforcements. Cossack confidently replies that he will finish them all at once. Activating a stealth skill, Cossack disappears into the forest like a phantom. Watching from cover, Yi-hyuk is amazed as Cossack moves through the goblins so quickly that they are cut down before realizing they are under attack. The system confirms another successful clear. Yi-hyuk levels up, receives 1.5 kilograms of magic stones and 5 tower-exclusive healing potions, followed by another S++ clear rank and another platinum badge. They then unlock the 16th floor before returning to the apartment. Back home, Yi-hyuk opens his inventory and summons his collection of platinum badges. Counting them, he realizes he now has 15. Just as he expected, another perk is unlocked. Remembering that 5 badges granted a trait enhancement and 10 badges allowed him to copy a summon skill, he eagerly waits to see what the new reward will be. The system grants him an energy shield kit, which is placed in his tower inventory. After equipping the golden bracelet, he learns that it creates a damage-absorbing shield, has a 5-hour cooldown, scales with his level, and cannot be transferred to anyone else. When he activates it, a blue energy barrier completely surrounds his body. Delighted, he realizes the shield functions outside the tower as well, giving him reliable protection in the real world. Looking at the valuable bracelet, Yi-hyuk briefly wonders whether he should sell it. He estimates it could be worth 2 or even 3 billion won, enough to retire immediately. However, he quickly abandons the idea, realizing that climbing higher floors could bring even greater rewards. Turning to Cossack, he asks whether they can immediately achieve another S++ clear on the 16th floor. While eating, Cossack explains that clearing the floor is certainly possible, but he cannot guarantee another S++ rank. Surprised by the answer, Yi-hyuk is left wondering what his next move should be, while Cossack casually continues eating, seemingly unconcerned by the problem. Yi-hyuk stares at the energy shield bracelet again, wondering if he should simply sell it for a fortune. Elsewhere, Director Park Jeong-soo meets with his agents to discuss the mysterious S++ player. Team leader Jeon Gwang-il reports that the global announcements have stopped for 15 days and believes Bong Yi-hyuk is currently stalled on the 15th floor. Frustrated, Director Park laments that someone with such incredible talent also happens to be so timid. Gwang-il points out that the 16th floor marks a major jump in difficulty and suggests Yi-hyuk may simply be preparing before advancing. Just then, Gwang-il receives a call informing him that Yi-hyuk wants to visit the player shop. The news immediately changes Director Park's outlook. Realizing Yi-hyuk was likely farming the 15th floor to earn money for equipment, he regrets misjudging him. Since Yi-hyuk had almost no gear when they first met, he orders the staff to sell him anything he wants at an enormous discount. A flashback reveals what Yi-hyuk had actually been doing during those 15 days. After obtaining the energy shield, he asks Cossack to stab him so he can test it. Cossack is horrified, believing he has somehow offended his summoner, and desperately begs for any punishment except harming him. When Yi-hyuk insists it's only a simple test, Cossack refuses to listen. Growing impatient, Yi-hyuk grabs Cossack's dagger and stabs himself instead. Unfortunately, he forgets to activate the shield first. The blade pierces his stomach, but a healing effect immediately restores the wound. Cossack is horrified, blaming himself and even trying to cut off the arm that held the dagger. Yi-hyuk quickly stops him, assures him he's fine, and orders him to continue hunting. Still shaken, Cossack tearfully obeys and clears the floor in under 10 minutes. While waiting, Yi-hyuk decides to practice his newly copied asterisk shadow step asterisk. Blue energy surrounds him as he activates the skill for the first time. Dashing effortlessly through the forest, he quickly understands why Cossack recommended learning it first. The technique allows him to move with incredible speed and complete freedom, making it the perfect skill for escaping dangerous situations. While practicing shadow step, Yi-hyuk suddenly senses movement in the bushes. A goblin that had apparently hidden from Cossack lunges at him without warning. Startled, Yi-hyuk instinctively activates his energy shield just in time to block the attack before kicking the goblin away in disgust. The monster is instantly skewered through the head by Cossack, who appears from the shadows to protect his summoner. After casually tossing the corpse aside, his expression immediately turns serious as he rushes over to check Yi-hyuk for injuries. Relieved to find him unharmed, Cossack sternly scolds him once again for putting himself in danger. Yi-hyuk can only promise to be more careful while enduring the lecture. Back in the present, Yi-hyuk reflects that after farming the 15th floor for 15 days, he has become much more comfortable using his skill. During that time, he accumulated 22.5 kg of magic stones worth 11,250,000 won. He calls team leader Jeon Gwangil and asks to visit player shop. Although Yi-hyuk declines an escort, Gwangil insists it's a standard service and personally picks him up in a luxury limousine. Upon arriving at the Awaken Management Administration, Yi-hyuk receives VIP treatment. His vein data is registered, allowing him to enter the player shop whenever he wants, and Gwangil offers to give him a tour. Wanting to browse alone, Yi-hyuk politely declines. Inside, Yi-hyuk is impressed by the luxurious facility but finds it strangely empty. Assuming the expensive items scare away customers, he heads straight to sell his magic stone. The staff values his 22.5 kg of magic stones at 11,250,000 won, which will be deposited within 3 days. When Yi-hyuk asks if he can immediately spend the pending balance, the staff confirms that he can. Mentally exhausted from shopping, Yi-hyuk decides to quickly buy what he needs before heading home. Meanwhile, Director Park asks Gwangil how the visit is progressing. Gwangil reports that Yi-hyuk is shopping without any issues and reveals that the shop has been closed to all other players for the day. When asked about the prices, Gwangil explains that he secretly instructed the staff to sell everything to Yi-hyuk at a 90% discount. Since Yi-hyuk dislikes receiving favors, giving him free items would only make him uncomfortable, so heavy discounts are the better approach. Satisfied with the plan, Director Park praises the decision. Back at his apartment, Yi-hyuk admires his new equipment, an adamant mace for 2 million won and basilisk leather walkers for 3 million won. Knowing that standard equipment usually costs at least 20 to 30 million won, he realizes Gwangil must have secretly given him special treatment. Although he feels slightly burdened by the favor, he's also pleased with the quality of the gear. He realizes the walkers alone are enough to complete his defense because the energy shield replaces every other armor slot. The incredible perk makes him admit he's becoming increasingly greedy for even better rewards. The following day, Yi-hyuk summons John Cossack again. Instead of farming the 15th floor, he announces they're finally heading to the 16th floor. Then he decides to use his newly unlocked second summon. After chanting random nonsense, the random summon skill activates. A massive purple summoning circle erupts throughout the apartment, releasing overwhelming energy that cracks the floor and nearly destroys the room. As the violent aura settles, a gigantic muscular warrior covered in tribal tattoos emerges from the portal. His appearance shifts into a more monstrous form with horns and glowing red eyes, leaving Yi-hyuk wondering whether he's human or a monster. Before the newcomer can even speak, Cossack instantly attacks him, kicking him square in the face while furiously insulting him. To Yi-hyuk's surprise, the massive warrior barely reacts, casually saying the attack only tickled. Infuriated, Cossack draws both daggers and prepares to kill him, but Yi-hyuk hurriedly orders him to stop. The command immediately overrides Cossack's hostility and he obediently steps back, while Yi-hyuk breathes a sigh of relief that his apartment won't suffer any more damage. Yi-hyuk asks Cossack to move aside so he can speak with the new summon. Cossack warns him that the warrior is infamous in their world for being an idiot who probably doesn't even remember the 3 laws governing summons. Trying to prove him wrong, the warrior proudly claims he memorized them. He correctly recalls the first 2 laws but completely forgets third. Cossack suggests killing the new summon immediately, explaining that doing so would prevent him from being summoned again for 100 days. Surprised, Yihyuk learns such a rule exists before checking the warrior's status. The system identifies him as the dim-witted savage meat shield of the Great Plains tribe. His name is unknown, his satisfaction rating is empty, his resummon cooldown is 3 hours, and his rank is only R, the lowest possible grade. Disappointed, Yihyuk briefly considers waiting a month to use random summon again. Instead, he questions the warrior, but every answer is the same. He doesn't know his name, why he's there, or even what the tower is. Hopping to learn more, Yihyuk opens the detailed information window. The moment he touches it, his consciousness is pulled into the warrior's memories. He witnesses the warrior's peaceful past where he happily lived in nature and found joy in the simplest things. Despite possessing overwhelming physical strength, he was innocent and intellectually slow. His life changes when a man named Arius approaches him, earning his trust and manipulating him until he even forgets his own name. Eventually, Arius uses him as a disposable shield in the battle against the super beast Hydra. The warrior fights fearlessly, enduring the Hydra's corrosive breath while protecting his companions. He tears off its heads one after another, never realizing his own body is slowly melting. After the battle, he dies from the accumulated injuries while the very comrades he protected mock him instead of mourning his sacrifice. The vision ends and Yihyuk returns to reality deeply moved. Realizing the warrior was nothing more than a victim, he decides his low intelligence doesn't matter. He warmly welcomes the warrior into his party and promises to make him happy. Since the warrior no longer remembers his own name, Yihyuk offers 2 choices and eventually names him Gobang. Gobang immediately accepts the name and pledges absolute loyalty to his summoner. Yihyuk then declares that he, Cossack, and Gobang are now comrades who will climb the tower together. Although Cossack is initially shocked, quickly changes his attitude after recognizing Gobang's value as a durable frontline fighter. He happily volunteers to train him into a dependable teammate. With their new party complete, the trio enters the 16th floor of the Black Tower. After their abilities are adjusted to match the floor, they arrive in a dark, misty forest. Their mission is to eliminate 30 goblin scouts within 5 hours. Cossack reminds Yihyuk to keep his energy shield active and be ready to use Shadow Step at any moment. Yihyuk agrees, knowing the goblin scouts specialize in surprise attacks with poisoned blow dart. As they move through the forest, hidden goblins silently surround them. A poison needle suddenly shoots toward Yihyuk, but Cossack catches it just before it hits him. Realizing they've been ambushed, Yihyuk warns everyone as countless poison needles rain down from every direction. Cossack stands his ground, skillfully deflecting the barrage with his daggers, but the sheer number of projectiles is overwhelming. Seeing there are far more enemies than expected, Yihyuk immediately calls on his newest summon. Gobang charges forward and slams the ground with tremendous force, releasing a devastating shockwave that sends the hidden goblins flying. As the survivors try to flee, Gobang leaps into the air and crashes down again, creating another massive explosion that even sends Cossack tumbling through the air. The remaining goblins regroup and unleash another volley of poison needles, but every attack bounces harmlessly off Gobang's body. Completely unfazed, he calmly remarks that it only tickles. With the goblins distracted, Yihyuk orders a full attack. Cossack instantly cuts down the remaining enemies while Yihyuk watches Gobang's overwhelming strength in amazement. Although Gobang is only ranked R, Yihyuk realizes his combat ability rivals far higher ranked summons and suspects his low rank exists solely because of his poor intelligence. After clearing the floor, the 3 celebrate with a large box of fried chicken. Gobang happily devours the food, repeatedly calling it kitchen, while Cossack constantly corrects him and even scolds him for grabbing too much at once. When Cossack samples the spicy chicken, he immediately regrets it, revealing he can't handle spicy food. Gobang sincerely thanks Yihyuk for feeding him and promises his loyalty, touching Yihyuk enough that he says he'll be relying on Gobang just as much as Gobang relies on him. The heartwarming moment doesn't last long before Cossack starts bullying Gobang again over his pronunciation, forcing Yihyuk to stop another argument. The following day, they enter the 17th floor. After their abilities are adjusted to match the new floor, Yihyuk feels feels another noticeable increase in strength and briefly becomes overconfident, imagining himself finally joining the battle. Cossack immediately warns him that players often become reckless around level 20 and insists on taking the lead instead. Gobang also promises to protect his summoner, convincing Yihyuk to stay behind. Their new mission is to defeat 30 goblin warriors. Unlike the previous floor, they're confronted by a well-organized battalion of over 60 goblins fighting in disciplined formation. Remembering the guide he studied beforehand, Yihyuk realizes the actual situation is far more dangerous than expected. The standard strategy for the 17th floor is to retreat to the safe zone when the goblin warriors appear, wait for them to split into patrols of 3, then lure and eliminate each group one at a time. Although effective, the method is slow. Yihyuk has no intention of following it. Confident in his new teammate, he calls for Gobang and simply orders him to wipe out the entire army. Gobang charges forward with a thunderous roar, crashing straight into the goblin formation. The goblins hastily form a defensive line, but their shields and spears are completely useless against his overwhelming strength. He tears through the entire battalion, sending goblins and weapons flying in every direction. Watching the one-sided battle, Yihyuk realizes that strategy means nothing when the gap in raw power is this large. To him, it is like sending thousands of bicycles against a battle tank. The floor is cleared with another S++ rank, earning Yihyuk yet another platinum badge. Before they can celebrate, the system transports them to the 18th floor. Their new mission is to eliminate 30 goblin assassins. Unlike the previous enemies, these goblins possess stealth ability. Gobang charges in as usual but is immediately surrounded by invisible assassins that cling to him from every direction. Unable to locate his attackers, Gobang roars in frustration, demanding they fight him head-on while the hidden goblins mock him from the shadows. Seeing Gobang struggle, Cossack confidently steps forward and announces that it's time to demonstrate the proper way to deal with assassins. Activating his own superior stealth technique, he declares that the goblin's concealment is nothing compared to his. Cossack moves through the battlefield at incredible speed, effortlessly cutting down the hidden assassins as the mission count rises rapidly. Watching from behind, Yihyuk hides a satisfied grin. He had expected Cossack to take the bait after Gobang had stolen most of the spotlight on the previous floor. Not wanting to be outdone, Gobang charges back into the fight, determined to help, but Cossack angrily shoves him aside and continues the assault. Yihyuk eagerly hopes his growing collection of platinum badges will continue unlocking powerful perks. Now around level 18, he equips his crystal-topped mace and decides it's finally time to contribute in battle himself. Before entering the floor, he had carefully studied the walkthroughs and learned that the goblin assassin's stealth skill was relatively weak. Combined with the shadow step training he gained while repeatedly farming the 15th floor, he believes he can detect and evade their attacks. Activating shadow step, Yihyuk successfully dodges an assassin's surprise attack. Although he nearly loses his balance while swinging his mace, his clumsy strike still lands, defeating the goblin and giving him his first personal kill on the 18th floor. Before he can celebrate, another assassin attacks from above, but Cossack instantly cuts through multiple enemies, rapidly pushing the mission count to 27. With only 3 enemies remaining, Gobang charges in and finishes them all with a devastating ground slam, ruining Cossack's dramatic finale and earning another angry outburst from the assassin. After the battle, Cossack suddenly realizes Yihyuk is nowhere to be seen. He frantically searches the battlefield before finding him still fighting several assassins alone. Protected by the energy shield, Yihyuk narrowly avoids their attack. As the battle intensifies, he notices his senses sharpening and his perception slowing the world around him. Taking advantage of the opening, he unleashes a powerful swing of his mace that wipes out the remaining enemy. The system announces another S++ clear on the 18th floor and awards him another platinum badge. When Cossack finally reaches him, Yihyuk happily remarks that he managed to land the final hit, leaving Cossack dramatically devastated while Gobang watches in confusion. Meanwhile, at the Awaken Management Administration, another global S++ announcement appears. The officials celebrate Yihyuk's 18th consecutive S++ clear, praising his steady progress while agreeing that his identity must remain secret for his own safety. News of the achievement achievement quickly spreads nationwide. Broadcasters report that Korea's mysterious player has broken through an 18-floor streak of consecutive S++ clears after a 20-day pause, estimating the player's level to be around 19 and drawing the attention of the entire country. Back home, Yi-hyuk watches the news with a tired sigh, overwhelmed by the growing attention. Noticing Cossack sighing as well, he asks what's bothering him. Cossack explains that Yi-hyuk's growth is happening far too quickly. Alarmed, Yi-hyuk immediately denies having any talent, but Cossack remains convinced that his summoner's potential is developing at an incredible pace. Yi-hyuk laughs off Cossack's concerns, insisting he's only joking whenever Cossack praises his talent. Cossack isn't convinced. After witnessing Yi-hyuk's flawless use of Shadow Step, he believes even he would struggle to replicate it perfectly. That realization only worries him more. He warns Yi-hyuk that as he grows stronger, he'll gradually start enjoying combat, become more confident, and inevitably take greater risks. He reminds him of the promise they made from the beginning: safety and survival always come first. Yi-hyuk reassures him with an innocent smile, promising he'll never do anything reckless. Though Cossack reluctantly accepts the answer, he can't shake the feeling that something bad will eventually happen. Overwhelmed by anxiety, Cossack dramatically laments that their summoner is destined to cause trouble someday. Gobang watches the emotional breakdown with amusement and silently mocks Cossack for crying over nothing. The peaceful atmosphere quickly falls apart when Yi-hyuk smacks Gobang for provoking Cossack. Cossack immediately joins in, kicking Gobang and sending the giant crashing into the furniture. Yi-hyuk watches in horror as his refrigerator topples over, spilling groceries everywhere, including the homemade kimchi his mother gave him. Devastated, he orders both summons to stop destroying the apartment and unsummons them before mourning the loss of his precious kimchi. Wanting a break from the chaos, Yi-hyuk decides to visit his parents the following day. When he arrives home, his mother warmly welcomes him while scolding him for not visiting often enough. He finds his father still recovering from his hip injury and asks how he's doing. Although his mother reminds him that healing takes time, his father brushes it off and tells Yi-hyuk not to worry. The family gathers around the table for a simple meal of stew. During dinner, Yi-hyuk asks about his younger brother Min-hyuk and learns he's out buying tofu. His parents reassure him not to worry about the family's financial struggles or feel pressured to support. Hesitantly, Yi-hyuk considers revealing that he's awakened and casually remarks that it would be nice if he had become a player. His mother immediately becomes suspicious, but before she can finish questioning him, his father and brother burst into laughter, treating the idea as an obvious joke. His father jokes that he's the kind of man who calls his wife whenever there's a cockroach to deal with, prompting Min-hyuk to laugh that it's the funniest joke Yi-hyuk has ever made. Their mother sighs, reminding them that's nothing to be proud of. She then asks whether Yi-hyuk should be at work today. Nervously, he claims it's his day off, even though he quit his job long ago. His mother immediately sees through the lie, pointing out that his face always gives him away. Yi-hyuk clumsily denies lying, but she simply smiles and says she trusts her son. Her words touch him, but she follows them with a serious warning to never borrow money from loan sharks. The reminder brings back painful memories of his past debts and the horrifying Smile Cash murder case. Wanting to avoid the topic, Yi-hyuk asks what happened to her job. His mother explains that she was fired after confronting a rude customer who expected her to clean up recycling and food waste while servicing a water purifier. Unable to ignore the unfair treatment, she spoke her mind despite the consequences. Yi-hyuk reflects on his parents' personality. His mother is fearless and can't tolerate injustice, while his father proudly jokes that the greatest achievement of his life was asking such a strong woman out. Yi-hyuk quietly smiles, deciding to keep his awakening a secret until the situation becomes more stable. Before leaving, he gives Min-hyuk money for their parents and asks him to make sure they don't overwork themselves. Min-hyuk initially hesitates, making Yi-hyuk think he's embarrassed because of the tuition he previously paid for him. Instead, Min-hyuk shamelessly points out that everyone received an allowance except him. Annoyed, Yi-hyuk transfers him another 500,000 won and warns him not to waste it. Afterward, Yi-hyuk visits the Awakening Management Administration. Seeing his family strengthens his determination to survive and continue climbing the tower. A staff member reminds him to contact them before visiting the player shop in the future. Yi-hyuk agrees, though he feels guilty about receiving so much special treatment. Thinking ahead, he realizes that while the energy shield offers excellent protection, the monsters will only grow stronger on higher floors. Looking at the shield on his arm, he concludes that he should invest in additional defensive equipment before continuing his climb. Yi-hyuk decides decides to invest in survival gear and looks for a shield. A staff member first recommends a premium model worth 100 million won, leaving him stunned by the price. Realizing it's far beyond his budget, he reluctantly declines. As more customers enter the shop, his social anxiety only gets worse. He feels overwhelmed, especially having to speak with a female employee, and silently hopes no one pays attention. Seeing his hesitation, the employee recommends a smaller round shield made from an adamantium sectonium alloy. Though much cheaper, it is lightweight, self-repairing, and well-suited for beginner players. After trying it on, Yi-hyuk is delighted by how perfectly it complements his mace, making the two feel like a complete set. When he nervously asks for the price, she tells him it costs 40 million won. After a brief hesitation, he buys it and the payment is completed. Relieved, Yi-hyuk can't help thinking that talking to a shop employee is far more exhausting than fighting goblins. As he leaves the headquarters, eager to return home, friendly-looking player named Choi Hoseok approaches him. Introducing himself, Hoseok says he visits the player shop regularly and wanted to get acquainted since he had never seen Yi-hyuk before. He casually asks what floor Yi-hyuk is currently climbing, mentioning that he is already in the 30s. Not wanting to reveal the truth, Yi-hyuk simply says he's in the teens. Hoseok offers to help if he ever runs into trouble, but Yi-hyuk politely declines, saying everything is going smoothly. After wishing him luck, Hoseok leaves and Yi-hyuk admires his effortless social skills, even wondering if someone that outgoing must have a girlfriend. Later that night, Yi-hyuk checks his status window. He has reached level 19, can maintain 2 simultaneous summons, and possesses the skills Designated Summon, Random Summon, Unsummon, Tower Inventory, and Shadow Step. Excited to challenge the 19th floor, he decides to settle one matter first. Back at his apartment, he summons John Cossack, who enthusiastically appears and greets him. Yi-hyuk proudly shows off his newly purchased shield, and Cossack becomes so emotional that he nearly tears up. Laughing at the reaction, Yi-hyuk explains that he bought it to maximize his safety. Although Cossack questions whether the extra protection is really necessary, Yi-hyuk assures him that he intends to prioritize survival above everything else. Cossack grimly remarks that his former summoner made the same promise. Yi-hyuk reassures him that he's naturally a coward and will give up immediately if climbing the tower ever becomes too dangerous. Wanting a firm commitment, Cossack asks him to promise never to charge into battle alone. Yi-hyuk grabs his hands and sincerely promises. Satisfied, Cossack tells him that if things ever become hopeless, he should abandon both him and Gobang to escape. Privately, however, he hopes Gobang would be sacrificed first. Just as they prepare to enter the tower, Cossack suddenly catches a familiar scent. Yi-hyuk smiles and reveals that he bought king dumplings especially for him. Instantly forgetting everything else, Cossack becomes completely devoted. The two sit on the floor and eat together, with Cossack happily thanking Yi-hyuk for treating him before Gobang. While eating, Cossack unexpectedly asks whether Yi-hyuk has any enemies. Before Yi-hyuk can properly answer, Cossack senses overwhelming killing intent outside the apartment. Startled, Yi-hyuk immediately tells Cossack to hide and activates his energy shield. Moments later, something metallic rolls across the floor before the door slowly opens. Choi Hoseok steps inside with a suppressed pistol, revealing that he followed Yi-hyuk home after meeting him at the player's shop. Terrified, Yi-hyuk struggles to understand why he's being targeted. Hoseok orders him to remove his bracelet and open his inventory, threatening to shoot him if he refuses. Pressing the gun against Yi-hyuk's forehead, he mocks his fear, convinced he picked another easy victim. Unaware that Cossack is hiding behind him, Hoseok continues threatening Yi-hyuk. Watching from the floor, Yi-hyuk realizes the robber is already finished. Just as Hoseok raises his weapon again, Cossack suddenly appears behind him and knocks him unconscious with a single blow before he can react. Yi-hyuk stares in disbelief before praising Cossack for handling the situation perfectly without killing the intruder. He admits he was worried Cossack might immediately kill him without considering the consequences. Cossack awkwardly laughs, insisting he would never do something like that. Looking at the unconscious intruder, Yi-hyuk realizes he is an item broker, a criminal who hunts players outside the tower and steals their equipment while they are living as ordinary civilians. Remembering manager Lee's explanation about the elite team's protection services, he realizes he would have died if he hadn't possessed the ability to summon outside the tower. Once again, he recognizes how overpowered his summoning ability truly is. Meanwhile, Cossack begins tying up the unconscious man and offers to dispose of him. Yi-hyuk immediately refuses, insisting that they simply report him to the police. Although Cossack suggests quietly getting rid of him instead, Yi-hyuk firmly states that calling the authorities is the safest solution, and Cossack reluctantly agrees. Elsewhere, team leader Jeong Gwang-il learns that Yi-hyuk visited the player shop again without informing him. After hearing that Yi-hyuk only purchased a small buckler, he regrets not convincing him to join the elite team, believing he would have equipped him with a full set of gear. Judging by Yi-hyuk's mace and shield, Gwang-il concludes he is a melee fighter and decides to find an excuse to provide him with even better protective equipment. Before he can act, he receives an urgent call from the police player task force. Hearing the report, he immediately rushes toward Yi-hyuk's apartment, blaming himself for not securing the elite contract sooner. His only concern is making sure nothing has happened to Yi-hyuk. At the apartment, the police arrest Choi Ho-seok for home invasion and attempted robbery. Ho-seok immediately claims he's the victim and accuses Yi-hyuk of kidnapping him instead. Since both parties are involved, an officer tells Yi-hyuk he must also accompany them, leaving him convinced he's about to end up in prison. Just then, Ji-yeon Gwang-il bursts into the apartment and orders everyone to stop. Ho-seok excitedly calls out to him, believing the team leader will support his story. Instead, Gwang-il walks over and slaps him across the face before furiously demanding how he dared to attack another player and then lie about it. Ho-seok desperately insists he's innocent and argues that, as a level 34 player, he has no reason to commit robbery. Ignoring every excuse, Gwang-il immediately revokes his player registration and continues berating him. Watching everything unfold, Yi-hyuk is left speechless as Ho-seok realizes no one believes a word he's saying. Still furious, Gwang-il orders the officers to take Ho-seok away and informs them that the NIS will handle the case. Terrified by the mention of the NIS, Ho-seok desperately begs for mercy, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. Looking at him with disgust, he tells him to find a lawyer, adding that no respectable attorney would defend someone like him. He then instructs the officers on the proper procedure for arresting players. If a player escapes into the tower during transport, they should simply wait since player will eventually return to the same location. Ho-seok breaks down, begging for another chance and promising never to commit such crimes again, but no one pays attention to his desperate pleas. Still surrounded by an intimidating aura, Ji-yeon Gwang-il turns to Yi-hyuk and asks if he was injured. Nervously intimidated by his expression, Yi-hyuk says he was only startled. Gwang-il then bows deeply and sincerely apologizes for failing to protect him, promising that nothing like this will ever happen again. Internally, he resolves that he can no longer delay offering Yi-hyuk the elite contract and vows to protect him at all costs. Following day, Cossack greets Yi-hyuk and asks about the previous night's incident. Yi-hyuk explains that the criminal was taken away by the police thanks to Cossack's help. Cossack asks whether the man received the death penalty and when told he didn't, even asks for the detention center's location. Yi-hyuk immediately forbids him from looking for it, and Cossack obediently accepts the order. Yi-hyuk then summons Gobang, who excitedly looks up at the sky and counts the stars, proudly announcing there are 57 of them. Amused, Yi-hyuk notes that at least Gobang knows how to count before asking both summons if they're ready. The team enters the 19th floor of Korea's Black Tower, where the mission is to eliminate 30 goblin shamans. Although these enemies specialize in curses, binding spells, and weak fire magic, they pose little real threat. Gobang charges straight into the enemy formation. As the shamans begin chanting curses, he unleashes an earth-shaking roar that disperses the magic and shatters their spell formations through sheer force alone. Watching in amazement, Yi-hyuk remarks that Gobang literally blew the curses away with nothing but his voice. Cossack and Gobang immediately rush the remaining enemies. Cossack reminds Gobang to clear the floor as quickly as possible, and Gobang agrees. Together they cut through the goblin ranks with overwhelming speed and power, leaving the battlefield covered in defeated enemies. Determined to contribute, Yi-hyuk raises his mace and shield to join the fight. Before he can take a single step, however, the system announces that the 19th floor mission has already been completed. Stunned, Yi-hyuk realizes his summons intentionally finished the battle before he could participate. Cossack proudly asks whether the quick victory was satisfying, while Yi-hyuk concludes they deliberately prevented him from fighting. The system awards another S++ clear for the 19th floor along with a platinum badge. Following day, the team enters the 20th floor of Korea's Black Tower. Known as the Talent Evaluator, the floor is infamous for its extreme difficulty. As they step into a dense forest, Cossack warns Yi-hyuk that the 20th floor is filled with every type of goblin imaginable, including poison-shooting scouts, stealth assassins, curse-casting shamans, and massive hobgoblin. Hearing the description alone leaves Yi-hyuk intimidated. Wanting to keep him safe, Cossack suggests that Yi-hyuk stay in a secure location while they handle everything. Gobang agrees without hesitation, insisting that Yi-hyuk do nothing while they eliminate every enemy. The mission appears: defeat 100 goblins of any type and 1 hobgoblin within 10 hours. Failure means either death or abandoning the mission. As Cossack prepares to attack, he instructs Gobang to draw the enemy's attention first so he can shamans strike during the opening. Gobang charges ahead, pulling the entire horde toward himself. Shamans begin chanting curses, archers prepare volleys of arrows, stealth goblins move into position, and warriors rush forward from every direction. Watching his summons once again take all the danger upon themselves, Yi-hyuk realizes they intend to keep him out of the fight. Unwilling to remain protected forever, he suddenly bursts forward, leaving a trail of blue light behind him. Leaping over Gobang's shoulders, Yi-hyuk charges straight into the middle of the battlefield before either summon can stop. Gobang freezes in shock while Cossack watches in disbelief as arrows and spears rain toward his master. Ignoring the incoming attacks, Yi-hyuk dives directly into the goblin ranks with his mace and shield ready. Cossack panics, screaming for Yi-hyuk to stop as he watches him charge alone into the deadly battlefield. At that moment, memories of Yi-hyuk's past flash through his mind. As a child, he could never stand up to bullies who took his belongings. In elementary school, poverty made him an easy target for ridicule. Middle school passed in isolation, and by high school he was still eating lunch alone, unable to connect with anyone or confront those who intimidated. Facing the goblin horde, however, he reaches a new realization. People always frightened him because of the relationships and emotions involved. Monsters are different. They aren't people, they're simply enemies, no different from monsters in a game. That realization completely changes his mindset. Instead of fear, he focuses only on defeating them and earning the rewards. While Cossack desperately calls out to him again, the goblins charge with spears raised. Yi-hyuk responds by moving with astonishing speed, weaving through their attacks with precise footwork. His body blurs across the battlefield as he dodges each strike by the narrowest margin. Closing the distance in an instant, he smashes the lead goblin with his mace, sending it flying. Maintaining his momentum, he races through the battlefield, blue afterimages trailing behind him as one goblin after another falls to his relentless assault, leaving Cossack stunned as he realizes Yi-hyuk is already using Shadow Step so effectively. A sudden barrage of arrows rains down from above. Cossack immediately warns him and Yi-hyuk instinctively raises his shield. The projectiles strike his energy barrier instead, leaving him unharmed. Catching his breath, he realizes he would have been riddled with arrows without the barrier. Although relieved, the intensity of the battle reminds him how frightening real combat is, making him wonder if he pushed himself too far. Meanwhile, Cossack suddenly leaps from the cliff as planned, shouting for help to sell the illusion that their strategy has fallen apart. Earlier, Yi-hyuk had instructed him to head toward the cliff first, and now the plan unfolds exactly as intended. Gobang remains focused on protecting Yi-hyuk while the constant fighting begins draining Yi-hyuk's stamina. As he reaches the base of the cliff, he realizes he can't find the enemies he expected. Surrounded by charging goblins, panic sets in as he struggles to figure out his next move. Just as the goblins close in and Yi-hyuk believes he's about to die, Gobang steps between him and the enemy. With a single earth-shattering punch, Gobang crushes the goblins beneath his fist, effortlessly wiping them out. From the top of the cliff, Cossack smirks at Gobang's performance before turning his attention to the goblin shamans positioned above. Moving like an assassin, he eliminates every shaman in a series of swift strikes, completely destroying the enemy's ranged support. After cleaning his blades, Cossack notes that they have defeated all 100 goblins and concludes that the boss should appear at any moment. Watching both summons finish the battle so effortlessly, Yi-hyuk is once again reminded of the enormous gap between his own strength and theirs. Standing behind Gobang's massive frame, he awkwardly asks him to move forward a little despite being grateful for the protection. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoes through the forest. Yi-hyuk immediately realizes the boss has arrived as the system identifies it as the hobgoblin, final evolutionary stage of a goblin and the towering idol admired by goblins for its long legs. Recognizing the overwhelming threat, Cossack immediately rushes toward the newly appeared hobgoblin. Leaping from the cliff, he calls out to Gobang, who roars back that he will handle it. Gobang meets the hobgoblin head-on and the collision shakes the forest. Locking weapons with the boss, he successfully holds it in place, completely stopping its powerful attack and creating the opening Cossack needs. Without wasting a second, Cossack rushes in and tells Gobang to keep holding the boss. He then unleashes a series of precise strikes before driving both daggers into the hobgoblin's head, defeating the 20th floor boss. The system confirms the mission's completion after all 100 goblins and the hobgoblin are defeated. Yi-hyuk levels up and receives 2 kilograms of mana stones along with 5 tower-exclusive healing potions. After the battle, Cossack congratulates everyone while Yi-hyuk realizes once again that relying on his summons is the safest strategy. He sincerely thanks Cossack and Gobang for protecting him, and Gobang kneels meals to reaffirm his loyalty. The system awards an S++ clear for the 20th floor, grants another platinum badge, and unlocks access to the 21st floor before returning them to the Black Tower's exit. The achievement immediately becomes national news. Reports announce that someone has achieved an S++ clear on Korea's 20th floor, and online communities begin speculating about the mysterious player's identity. Many believe the record holder belongs to a major organization and is hiding to avoid being recruited by other countries. Watching the growing attention, President Park Geun-soo worries that too much publicity could expose Yi Hyuk's identity. He rejects the idea of controlling the media, believing it would only reveal that the government already knows who the S++ player is. Instead, he orders a discreet investigation into Yi Hyuk's family. The report reveals that Yi Hyuk's father, Bong Suchul, is recovering from hip surgery after an accident. Park immediately approves full financial support for treatment at the country's best rehabilitation center. The investigation then turns to Yi Hyuk's younger brother, Bong Min-hyuk, a university freshman preparing for military service. Park decides scholarship assistance would be the ideal way to support him. Finally, the report covers Yi Hyuk's mother, Hong Jumja, who recently lost her job after confronting an abusive customer. Learning this, Park concludes that she is the most influential member of the family, noting that neither her husband nor her sons can stand up to her. Realizing she has the greatest influence over Yi Hyuk, he identifies her as the key person to focus on. President Park Geun-soo approves the plan and orders his staff to use every resource available within the Awakening Management Administration to support Yi Hyuk's family as quickly as possible. Back at Yi Hyuk's apartment, loud knocking signals the arrival of a food delivery. Smelling the food, Go-bang excitedly calls out while Cossack immediately recognizes it's the delivery. Panicking, Yi Hyuk hurriedly hides both summons before answering the door, covering Go-bang with a blanket while Cossack quietly retreats to another room. The delivery contains 12 orders of sweet and sour pork and 12 bowls of jjajangmyeon. The delivery driver jokes that Yi Hyuk must be hosting a party and mentions he included one fried dumpling for free. After the driver leaves, Yi Hyuk stares at the enormous meal, disappointed that such a large order earned only a single complimentary dumpling. He then searches the containers for discount coupons but finds none, feeling the missing coupons are an even bigger loss. Despite his growing wealth, he realizes he would still be too socially anxious to redeem them anyway. Once the delivery driver is gone, Yi Hyuk lets his summons come out. Go-bang excitedly comments on the smell of the jjajangmyeon, and Yi Hyuk introduces him to the dish for the first time. The meal quickly turns chaotic as Go-bang devours not only the food but also the ceramic plates, leaving Cossack horrified while Go-bang casually declares the plates are crisp. Leaving the commotion behind, Yi Hyuk opens his inventory to examine the rewards from clearing the 20th floor. As his summons continue eating in the background, the system announces a special perk for collecting 20 platinum badges. A golden light fills the inventory as a mysterious random box appears. Curious, Yi Hyuk examines it and discovers it can grant countless rewards, including rare skills, powerful summons, equipment, and other valuable items. Since the outcome is completely random, he decides not to overthink it. He quickly dismisses ordinary rewards such as mana stones, herbs, weapons, and armor. He also rejects the tower jump ticket after realizing it would skip valuable floor clear rewards despite saving time. Another option allows access to towers in other countries, but he decides to keep looking. His attention is finally captured by a grade guaranteed summon ticket. The possibility of obtaining an LSSR ranked summon excites him, and he begins imagining how dramatically such a summon could change his life and make future tower climbs effortless. Knowing the odds are incredibly low but unable to resist the possibility of hitting the jackpot, he offers a quick prayer before opening the random box. A brilliant blue light fills the room as the rewards begin to appear. The first reward is 10 kilograms of mana stones. At first, Yi Hyuk is disappointed, but his mood instantly changes after realizing they're worth 5 million won. The second reward is a new growth-type combat skill called Chaos Lightning Staff, an offensive ability that infuses his mace with lightning. Final reward is a rune of summon grade up. The rare item allows one of his summons to advance to a higher rank, making it the true jackpot in Yi Hyuk's eyes. The system explains that it can evolve a summon from SR to SSR, but the chosen summon will be unavailable while the upgrade is in progress. Looking over at Cossack and Go-bang as they noisily devour their meal, Yi Hyuk considers which summon deserves the upgrade. Because of everything they've been through together, he leans toward choosing Cossack, though he jokes that Go-bang has certainly eaten the most. Since their current strength is enough for now, he decides to save the rune until the right moment. He then turns his attention to his newly acquired skill. The system explains that Chaos Lightning Staff is a growth-type ability ability whose first technique, Lightning Soul Chaser, channels lightning through his mace. Curious to test it, Yi-hyuk grips his weapon as blue energy flows into it. He swings with all his strength, expecting a spectacular display, but nothing happens. Quickly realizes that tower combat skills cannot be used outside the tower, otherwise players would pose an even greater threat in the real world. Cossack looks up in confusion after witnessing Yi-hyuk's sudden outburst. Embarrassed, Yi-hyuk explains that he was testing the new skill he earned from clearing the floor and excitedly adds that it's a growth-type ability with tremendous potential. The commotion knocks over Cossack's bowl of food, leaving him devastated over the spilled meal, while Gobeng calmly continues eating without paying any attention. Before long, the two summons begin arguing over the last of the food. Watching the chaos unfold, Yi-hyuk realizes how eccentric his companions are. Deciding he's had enough for one day, he unsummons both of them and gets some rest. Following morning, Yi-hyuk quietly reflects on everything that happened the previous night. Realizing how genuinely worried Cossack is about his safety, he can't help feeling conflicted. Although it is an incredibly powerful ability, he realizes it also places a tremendous burden on his summons who are desperately trying to protect him. He recalls that a summoner's strength normally comes almost entirely from their summon. Rather than fighting on the front lines, summoners stay at a safe distance while their monsters handle combat. This is even more important for someone like Yi-hyuk, whose rare ability allows him to summon creatures into the real world. His thoughts drift to a summoner from a parallel world who possessed the same trait. Despite being far stronger than Yi-hyuk, that summoner ultimately died and their world was destroyed soon afterward. Remembering that tragedy, Yi-hyuk finally understands why Cossack is so overprotective. His summons aren't simply guarding their master, they're trying to prevent history from repeating itself. Even so, Yi-hyuk refuses to remain a bystander forever. Determined to become stronger himself, he summons Cossack and Gobeng once again, hoping to convince them to let him fight. The two summons reappear, but Cossack looks completely exhausted from worrying about his master. He warns that offensive skills can become a dangerous temptation for summoners and reminds Yi-hyuk that while goblins were manageable, the orcs on the next floor are far more dangerous. Unwilling to take any chances, Gobeng even prepares a rope to keep Yi-hyuk from rushing into battle. Cossack then explains the summon principles that guide his action. Protecting Yi-hyuk's life always comes first, and his safety takes priority over every other order. Gobeng reinforces that principle by trapping Yi-hyuk in an overwhelming bear hug, making it impossible for him to move until Cossack tells him to stop. Two summons decide that Gobeng will stay beside Yi-hyuk to protect him while Cossack clears the enemies ahead. Feeling like they're treating him as if he's made of glass, Yi-hyuk lets out a long sigh before making one final request. With a sincere plea, he asks them to let him fight just once. He promises not to recklessly charge ahead again and says he only wants the chance to defeat a single monster himself. Cossack struggles with the request but eventually agrees on one condition. The moment Yi-hyuk is in real danger, he will step in without hesitation. Satisfied with the compromise, the three enter the 21st floor of the Black Tower. The dark forest is filled with towering trees and the sounds of dangerous monsters lurking nearby. Yi-hyuk points out that forest orcs are powerful but not particularly intelligent. Cossack jokes that they're probably still smarter than Gobeng before suggesting Yi-hyuk practice his attacks first. He even proposes using Gobeng as a training dummy, but Yi-hyuk immediately rejects the idea and threatens to charge into battle alone if they keep insisting. Choosing to test his new skill against a real enemy instead, Yi-hyuk grips his mace as blue lightning begins crackling around it. At that moment, the mission appears: defeat 30 forest orcs within 4 hours. Soon, the green-skinned monsters emerge, signaling the start of another deadly battle. Cossack and Gobeng immediately charge into battle, leaving Yi-hyuk behind as they tear through the forest orcs with flawless coordination. Gobeng crushes enemies with overwhelming strength while Cossack cuts through the battlefield with deadly precision. The orcs are completely overwhelmed, falling one after another without putting up any meaningful resistance. Watching from a distance, Yi-hyuk is left speechless. His summons move so quickly that he can barely follow them, and before he can even join the fight, nearly every orc has already been defeated. At last, Cossack spots a single surviving orc and leaves it for Yi-hyuk. Excited to finally test his new skill, Yi-hyuk rushes forward, his body surrounded by crackling blue lightning. The startled orc desperately swings its weapon, but Yi-hyuk effortlessly avoids the attack. Using the opening, he leaps into the air as lightning lightning gathers around his mace. Activating Chaos Lightning Staff, he unleashes its first technique, Lightning Soul Chaser. A pillar of lightning erupts as his mace crashes into the orc's head, releasing a violent explosion of electricity. The devastating strike smashes the orc into the ground, proving the destructive power of his new skill far exceeds an ordinary mace attack. Standing amid the fatting sparks, Yi-hyuk smiles with satisfaction. Pinning the defeated orc to the ground, he realizes he's finally capable of fighting alongside his summons instead of relying on them completely. Filled with confidence, he charges toward another nearby orc, eager to continue fighting. Before he can reach it, however, Gobeng crushes the monster with a single stomp. Slightly disappointed, Yi-hyuk jokingly asks if he's only allowed to defeat one enemy himself. The mission is then completed. The system rewards him with another level, mana stones, and a platinum badge for clearing the 21st floor. The following day, Yi-hyuk reaches the 22nd floor where he defeats a desert orc with a single strike before earning another S++ clear and additional reward. Without slowing down, he advances to the 23rd floor. There, he effortlessly defeats the cave orc, once again overwhelming the enemy before it can retaliate. The floor is cleared almost instantly, earning him yet another S++ rank as his rapid progress through the tower continues. Yi-hyuk continues his rapid climb by defeating a volcano orc on the 24th floor. Although the extreme heat pushes him to his limit, Cossack and Gobeng help him secure another flawless victory. The system awards him his fourth consecutive S++ clear, and his relentless advance through the tower shows no signs of slowing. The following day, Yi-hyuk looks forward to challenging the 25th floor. As he prepares for the next climb, he realizes repeatedly defeating monsters has become routine. Deciding it's time to reward the summons who have carried him this far, he calls Cossack. Cossack appears immediately and salutes. Yi-hyuk casually tosses him the rune of summon grade up, pretending it isn't a big deal. The moment Cossack recognizes the item, he freezes in disbelief. Realizing it can raise his rank from SR to SSR, he becomes overwhelmed with emotion and tearfully thanks Yi-hyuk, even kissing the rune while promising to protect him even better than before. Although Yi-hyuk wants to begin the upgrade immediately, Cossack advises against rushing the process. After promising to return once the evolution is complete, he temporarily leaves. With some free time on his hands, Yi-hyuk and Gobeng relax at home watching television. During a news broadcast, something suddenly catches Yi-hyuk's attention. He quickly tells Cossack to rewind the program, only to freeze when he sees his own mother, Hong Jumja, on the screen. The report shows her standing alone outside a large company building, protesting against an unfair dismissal and demanding justice. Pedestrians continue walking past while she remains alone with her protest sign. The broadcast reveals what led to the situation. While working as a water purifier coordinator, Hong Jumja endured repeated mistreatment and unreasonable demands. After refusing to tolerate the abuse any longer, she was fired and pressured to apologize despite doing nothing wrong. For 10 days, she continued protesting by herself, only to be ridiculed by company executives who dismissed her efforts as meaningless. Despite the humiliation, she refuses to give up and remains determined to fight back. As she continues her protest, a well-dressed attorney named Lee Changseok approaches and introduces himself. Suspicious after everything she has endured, Hong Jumja immediately assumes the company has sent another representative to threaten her. She firmly declares that she has no intention of backing down, but Lee quickly explains that he has come for the opposite reason. Lee Changseok hands Hong Jumja his business card and proposes that they take legal action against the company together. He explains that one of South Korea's top law firms is willing to represent her free of charge as part of a special public interest project. Still cautious, Hong Jumja questions his intention. Lee reassures her that the firm regularly provides free legal assistance to vulnerable people and reveals that he is already familiar with the labor complaint she filed. Although she remains suspicious, she gradually realizes the offer appears genuine. Lee encourages her to see the opportunity as a reward for her years of hard work and promises that his firm will do everything possible to win the case. After a moment of hesitation, Hong Jumja decides to place her trust in him. Lee immediately launches an aggressive media strategy. Reporters soon gather around Hong Jumja as she shares the details of the unfair treatment she endured, bringing public attention to her case for the first time. Watching the broadcast from home, Yi-hyuk is overwhelmed with guilt. He had no idea his mother had been struggling alone while he was focused on climbing the tower. At the same time, he begins questioning how such a prestigious law firm suddenly became involved in her case. Seeing Yi-hyuk's anger, Cossack is ready to march to the company himself, but Yi-hyuk orders him to stand down. Since his mother now has legal support, he decides to observe the situation while preparing to sell his mana stones if legal expenses become necessary. Just then, his father calls with unexpected news. Excitedly, he explains that Hong Jumja has received free legal representation and tells Yi-hyuk not to worry about the family. He then reveals that he has also been selected for a fully funded hip surgery and rehabilitation program at Ilsung Hospital. The coincidence immediately raises Yi-hyuk's suspicion. Before he can process it, another call arrives from his younger brother, Min-hyuk. After talking about their mother's interview, Min-hyuk casually mentions that he has been awarded a large scholarship from the Awakening Management Administration. With the lawyer, the hospital, and the scholarship all appearing at the same time, Yi-hyuk finally understands what is happening. None of it is a coincidence. The Awakening Management Administration has quietly solved every major problem facing his family. Realizing the organization has deliberately supported his family to earn his trust, Yi-hyuk decides it's time to confront them directly. He contacts team leader Han Joel and requests a private meeting. Han immediately agrees, personally picks him up in a luxury car, and takes him to a traditional restaurant, where Yi-hyuk prepares to discuss the administration's true intention. Yi-hyuk meets Han Joel determined to confront him about interfering in his family's lives. He immediately questions why the Awakening Management Administration arranged legal support for his mother, medical treatment for his father, and a scholarship for his brother without his permission. Han calmly admits that everything was done intentionally. He explains that eliminating Yi-hyuk's family burdens allows him to focus entirely on climbing the tower without distraction. Although Yi-hyuk understands the reasoning, he is frustrated that such major decisions were made without consulting him. He points out that this level of support is normally reserved for the administration's elite members, not someone with a standard contract. In response, Han places a new contract on the table, an elite agreement designed for specially managed players, and invites Yi-hyuk to join the organization's top team. Caught off guard, Yi-hyuk insists he isn't confident enough in his own abilities to accept such an offer. Han immediately challenges that claim, reminding him that no one lacking talent could achieve 24 consecutive S++ clears. Faced with the undeniable results, Yi-hyuk can no longer dismiss his accomplishment. To Yi-hyuk's surprise, Han even bows and sincerely asks him to accept the offer. He promises that an elite contract will provide constant protection, ensuring Yi-hyuk never experiences another life-threatening incident like the attack by the item broker. Yi-hyuk remains hesitant. He values his privacy and worries that joining the administration would expose Cossack and Gobang to public attention and constant monitoring. Han responds by promising to respect Yi-hyuk's preferences regarding security, surveillance, and the handling of his summon. The offer becomes even more attractive with additional benefits, including protection for his family, secure housing, and 2 homes, one for Yi-hyuk and another for his family. Tempted by the proposal, Yi-hyuk is nearly ready to sign. Just before putting pen to paper, however, he stops. Realizing the decision is too important to make impulsively, he asks for more time to think it over. Although disappointed, Han agrees to wait for his answer. The following day, a brilliant light fills Yi-hyuk's home as Cossack completes his evolution. Emerging in his new SSR form, he appears far more imposing than before, while Yi-hyuk jokingly complains that the dramatic entrance is blinding him. Once the excitement settles, Yi-hyuk asks Cossack to speak with him privately. Still uncertain about the administration's proposal, he explains the entire elite contract offer and asks for Cossack's opinion before making the biggest decision of his life. Cossack immediately supports the administration's proposal, insisting that a player of Yi-hyuk's caliber deserves the best protection the government can provide. When Yi-hyuk worries about eventually climbing all 60 floors, Cossack dismisses the concern and reminds him that a summoner's safety always comes first. He explains that in his original world there were countless legendary summons waiting to be called. As long as Yi-hyuk survives, he will eventually summon them all, including beings powerful enough to rival demigods. Every one of them will obey him without question, allowing him to build an army unlike anything the world has ever seen. Overwhelmed by the idea of commanding such powerful beings, Yi-hyuk asks whether he will one day be able to summon even unranked existences. Cossack admits it is impossible for now, but assures him that it will become possible as his strength continues to grow. Rather than chasing unnecessary battles, Cossack advises Yi-hyuk to focus on staying alive and making full use of his random summon ability. With its 1-month cooldown, Yi-hyuk is guaranteed guaranteed at least 12 new summons each year, and valuable items could accelerate his growth even further. Even so, Yi-hyuk realizes everything still depends on luck. Checking the system, he sees that 19 days remain before he can perform another random summon. Before accepting the elite contract, Cossack gives him one important piece of advice. He should demand complete authority over when to challenge uncleared floors. Otherwise, people will constantly pressure him into taking unnecessary risks. Growing emotional as he recalls the fate of previous summoners, Cossack urges Yi-hyuk never to sacrifice his own safety. Grateful for the advice, Yi-hyuk thanks him before summoning Gobang. The reunion quickly turns into comedy as Cossack proudly boasts about reaching SSR rank and repeatedly mocks Gobang for still being an R-rank summon. Although Gobang remains proud, even he is visibly intimidated by the enormous gap in strength between them. Feeling sorry for his loyal guardian, Yi-hyuk quietly decides that the next grade-up rune will belong to Gobang. Soon afterward, the group enters the 25th floor of the Black Tower. Their objective is to defeat 100 orcs and the floor boss within 10 hours. While Yi-hyuk focuses on earning another platinum badge, Cossack eagerly looks forward to testing his new SSR ability. Following Cossack's instructions, Gobang charges ahead to draw the enemy's attention. Every step shakes the ground as he launches himself high into the air before crashing into the battlefield with tremendous force. The impact creates a powerful shockwave that sends orcs flying in every direction and instantly gathers the attention of the entire horde. Watching Gobang create the opening, Cossack calmly prepares to join the battle, ready to unleash the full power of his newly evolved SSR form. Cossack dashes across the battlefield so quickly that he appears as nothing more than a streak of blue light. Weaving effortlessly between the orcs, he strikes with incredible precision, leaving Yi-hyuk stunned by the overwhelming speed of his newly evolved SSR form. With glowing daggers in hand, Cossack cuts through multiple enemies in an instant. His blades pierce several orcs simultaneously before he follows up Blade Explosion, unleashing a chain of massive blasts that devastate the battlefield. Watching the destruction, Yi-hyuk realizes Cossack's attacks are no longer comparable to ordinary combat techniques. They possess explosive power on an entirely different level. The surviving orcs attempt to surround Cossack, launching spears, javelins, hidden weapons, poison, and coordinated attacks from every direction. Believing they have finally cornered him, they prepare to finish him off. Their confidence lasts only a moment. Cossack's body dissolves into light, revealing they had been attacking nothing but an afterimage. Before they can react, he reappears between them with a mocking smile and effortlessly cuts them down. The battlefield is soon covered with defeated orcs, leaving only a handful of terrified survivors. Drawing his poison daggers once more, Cossack calmly warns the remaining enemies that the battle has only begun. Realizing his summons are clearing the floor too quickly, Yi-hyuk rushes into the fight. Activating Shadow Step, he dashes toward the remaining orcs, determined to prove he can fight alongside his summons instead of relying on them completely. Remembering Cossack's advice that his survival is their greatest priority, Yi-hyuk resolves to become strong enough to protect both himself and those who fight for him. He grips his lightning-infused mace and charges into the enemy formation. An orc attacks first, but Yi-hyuk calmly sidesteps the strike before countering with a powerful kick that sends the monster flying. As more enemies surround him, he channels energy into his weapon and unleashes Lightning Soul Chaser once again. A burst of lightning tears through the orcs, effortlessly breaking their defenses and defeating multiple enemies at once. The remaining monsters continue rushing him, hoping to overwhelm him with numbers. Activating Shadow Step again, Yi-hyuk blurs across the battlefield faster than the orcs can follow before descending from above with another lightning-charged attack. As his combat skills continue to improve during the battle, the system announces that Chaos Lightning Staff has evolved, unlocking its second technique, Scattered Lightning. Surrounded by charging orcs, he immediately decides to test the second form of Chaos Lightning Staff. Channeling a massive amount of electricity into his weapon, he unleashes Scattered Lightning. The stored energy bursts outward as multiple strands of lightning automatically seek nearby enemies. In an instant, the battlefield is engulfed in blinding flashes as 5 separate bolts strike 5 different orcs simultaneously, wiping them out with devastating efficiency. The system confirms that the skill splits its lightning into 5 independent attacks, making it ideal for clearing large groups of enemies. Delighted by the results, Yi-hyuk realizes he finally has a powerful area of effect technique for future battle. Moments later, Cossack arrives and is briefly confused by the scorched battlefield before realizing Yihyuk is responsible. Instead of praising him, he immediately scolds Yihyuk for taking unnecessary risks, reminding him of his promise to clear the tower carefully. Embarrassed, Yihyuk quickly apologizes. As he reflects on the exchange, Yihyuk suddenly realizes how strange the situation is. Despite being the summoner, he's the one apologizing to his own summon. Determined to act more confidently, he resolves to stop behaving like a coward inside the tower. Filled with newfound confidence, Yihyuk challenges the floor boss and charges forward. His determination vanishes the moment the towering orc chieftain suddenly appears behind him. Faced with the boss's enormous axe, he instinctively cries out for Cossack's help. Cossack immediately intercepts the attack, blocking the massive weapon with his twin blades. Shaken by how close he came to death, Yihyuk admits to himself that he should have listened to Cossack from the beginning. Retreating to a safe position, he leaves the boss to his summons. The orc chieftain roars as Gobang and Cossack step forward to protect their master. While Yihyuk watches from behind cover, Gobang charges directly at the boss with Cossack supporting him from the flank. As the orc chieftain swings its gigantic axe, Gobang calmly reaches out and catches the weapon with one hand. The impact sends a powerful shockwave across the battlefield, yet Gobang remains completely unmoved. Stunned that its full-strength attack has been stopped so effortlessly, the orc chieftain can only watch as Gobang leaps into the air, preparing to deliver a devastating counterattack. Gobang crashes into the orc chieftain with tremendous force, pinning the massive boss beneath his weight and leaving it completely unable to move. Taking advantage of the opening, Cossack instantly teleports behind the immobilized boss and activates his ambush skill, finishing it with a swift, decisive strike. The system confirms the successful completion of the 25th floor mission. Yihyuk levels up, receives a large amount of mana stones, earns another S++ clear, and is awarded another platinum badge, unlocking access to the 26th floor. Having accumulated 25 platinum badges, Yihyuk also receives a special encore perk. Several rewards are presented, including trait enhancement, skill copy, a random item, and another summon grade up. After briefly considering the options, he immediately chooses trait enhancement, believing it offers the greatest long-term benefit. The system upgrades his trait and updates his status to level 26. Most importantly, his simultaneous summon limit increases from 2 to 3, allowing him to field 3 summons at once. Excited by the upgrade, Yihyuk begins looking forward to recruiting another powerful summon once his cooldown expired. Back at home, Yihyuk decides to reward Cossack and Gobang for their hard work with a meal. When he asks what they want, Gobang's stomach answers first, while Cossack unexpectedly requests tteokbok. Yihyuk reminds him that he has never handled spicy food well, but Cossack confidently insists that becoming an SSR summon has changed that. When the food arrives, Yihyuk thanks both summons for their efforts and tells them to eat as much as they like. Gobang happily devours the meal, claiming it tastes sweet, while Cossack cautiously takes his first bite. Seconds later, the overwhelming spice leaves him completely defeated, collapsing in agony as Gobang casually continues eating and jokes that they should replace the spice-sensitive assassin with someone tougher. Amused by the scene, Yihyuk quietly watches them while enjoying his meal. Later that evening, Yihyuk returns home carrying expensive premium beef for his family. His mother is shocked by the cost, and Minhyuk immediately questions where he got the money, but their father encourages everyone to simply enjoy the meal together. During dinner, Yihyuk decides it is finally time to reveal the truth. He calmly tells his family that he has awakened as a tower player. Instead of believing him, they dismiss it as a joke and tell him to stop fooling around. Realizing words alone won't convince them, Yihyuk contacts team leader Han Joel and asks for help proving his identity. The following morning, Han arranges for Yihyuk's family to be brought to a luxurious high-rise building in a limousine. Treated with the highest level of respect by the staff, they are left speechless when they are informed that Yihyuk is considered one of the nation's most valuable assets. To complete the move, Yihyuk unlocks the door to his family's new home with a premium black card. Beyond it is a luxurious penthouse with an incredible view, leaving his parents and Minhyuk speechless as they finally realize how dramatically their lives have changed.